agreements in place for 3 years with both of our unions. We put in a new financial software system. The old one was pretty old. We're looking to see some efficiencies from the new one. We also put into place a long-term financial forecasting process that we do before we get into the budget. And then we have completed this Nexus study. Is coming to council in the first meeting in February. And that's all of our developer impact fees. And then on the wastewater priority, each of the last 2 years, we've done a series of I&I repairs, pretty major investments. We have worked through this whole process of how do we get to a new wastewater treatment plant. We decided to go with a design build, and we put out an RFP. We picked a vendor, and we completed an agreement, and we've started, which is probably going to be a 12-month process on the design phase. Right now, we're primarily focused on the regulatory requirements. So there's still, I think, a lot of work left to be done on the wastewater side. We have to complete the ARSA dissolution. We have to complete the Pinewood expansion line, and we have to continue to work on the funding plan for the new wastewater treatment plant. And then on the economic development front, I think relations with the Business Association, the Visitor Center have much improved. We regularly participate in their meetings. We have a robust event schedule for downtown. We got this entrepreneurship grant that we've held 3 events, and we're continuing to work on that. And so, again, I think this priority has some remaining work, continuing to look at how we could create some good paying jobs in the community. We're talking to Columbia College about a potential satellite campus. And again, I think it's just kind of an open issue where there's more work that can be done.
Can you elaborate on the Columbia College plan a little bit on kind of where college and the city are in terms of
and it may end up in somewhere else in Amador County, but I think it'd be good for the region. There's just been initial discussions. I think Columbia is interested, and we met with the school district and College Connect. And again, it's just a slow process. It's kind of underway.
So it's still focused on coming into Sutter Creek?
There was some talk about a location in Sutter Creek. I think the school district, if they use one of the school district buildings, it would be in Jackson.
Oh, not the continuation site?
Right.
The Independence High School.
But again, it's really early in the discussion. So I think hopefully the positive thing is that they would have a physical presence here in the county.
Yeah.
But
okay, thank you.
So just, if we talked about priorities, the goal is to have kind of, about 3 topics. If we had 10 priorities, then really nothing's a priority. And they really help the council, and they help us staff, I think, allocate our time, on the things that we think are most important. And, it should be a specific goal. I think sometimes cities will have a priority that's more of a value. And there's a suggestion that it shouldn't really be a priority for more than 3 years. And that once you've kind of figured out how you're going to do something, you could kind of demote it to ongoing work where you're really just kind of executing, and it maybe doesn't need to be a focused priority anymore.
I think it's been really helpful too, and we can remember as we go through this process that the city manager's report specifically, but our meetings and staff reporting follow this framework too. You report on each priority as a category. That's been helpful to us.
So, as I look at it personally, and eager to hear what you guys have to say, I think we're at a point where we could potentially demote kind of priorities 1 and 2, the roads and the budget. I think we made a lot of progress, and now it's mainly kind of continuing to focus on execution. I'd recommend keeping 3 and 4, the wastewater plant and economic development. And, there were some ideas here for additional priorities, but what I was going to suggest, and Mayor, it's up to you how you want to do it, if you want to have a discussion first. But I thought maybe we could just kind of brainstorm some additional priorities. There's these little yellow sticky pads around the room. If people want to write down ideas, we can put them up on the whiteboard. But this is really a point where turn it back to you guys to talk about priorities.
I think we could start by acknowledging if there's anything, if any of us disagree, that we could pass 1 and 2 off to execution, since we now have kind of a plan in place for those. If we agree that we need to keep 3 and 4, and then personally, my 2 new priorities are on this suggested list. But if there's any other, let's throw them out there, and then we can discuss as a group and, pick 3 or 4 or 5. Julia, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I would like to remain at the budget, remain in a 1, 2, or 3 to keep it in the top 3, maybe extend it to 4, only because the budget does overlap with, I believe, also economic development, because one, I think, determines the other and vice versa. So to me, budget should remain as a top report. I think just given our past work, realizing that we have a finite time of being sustainable, that we need to keep that at the forefront in determining expenditures and any future economic development.
Jim?
Well, I would just say to that, that your budget is always, in my mind, is always going to be a top priority, no matter where you put it on the list. So if that's what if you want to prefer to officially make it that way, I'm fine with that, but it's still it drives everything in my mind.
Yes.
Did you have any other priorities that you would want to add on here if we?
Well, I think I agree that the wastewater should not be moved to an ongoing. It's still a top priority in economic development. We've also just dropped on the agenda the short-term rental ordinance, and so I think there's plenty to do without creating a bunch of new priorities, but that's my opinion.
Susan?
I agree with what Jim said with regard to the budget, that it's, always going to drive the whole thing, but I don't have either way how we decide to do it. And then with the beautification, I just wanted to lean into my ongoing desire for shade. And I think that actually will contribute to economic development, as well as make the town more hospitable and desirable. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. But all the things on that list, I'm on board for.
Sure. We'll be sure to open that up throughout the morning. I have notes from Dan too, so I'll go ahead and he suggested staying with existing 2, but focusing that on the wastewater plant funding, the new budget priority, an existing 3. And he wanted to develop high-performing city teams based on teamwork and individual department metrics that are measurable and objective. For myself, I feel like roads, we have a good plan and we have some funding and we have our CIP and now we just need to do it. The budget, I agree with Julia, we're not sustainable for long or barely sustainable, so we still need to be working on that, but it always drives the whole boat. So, I think it's a priority naturally without listing it. I would also like to prioritize, becoming a high performing organization. And I think if we do that, it has a compounding effect on safety and beautification and economic development and all those things. We could discuss that, as we go. And also code enforcement. I think that as we've taken a more active role in the last year and a half, 2 years, we've learned the lesson that the more time goes by on some of these cases, the harder it is to come to a solution. So I think we should take what we learned and try to make some more measurable progress on those things. Most of the people in the, I don't really, do you guys want me to bring it to staff for your input or this side of the room, or we could just treat it all the same? How about that?
I think we could just open it up, but
Okay.
just a couple of thoughts on what you guys are saying. So yeah, I mean, obviously we always have to manage the budget. And I think, again, the idea of not making it one of the listed priorities was we had some really specific things last couple of years, like passing a ballot measure, which was a huge amount of work, and putting in a new financial system. And so now again, from my perspective, it is just good financial management, putting together the budget and managing to the budget. But there's not these extra efforts planned that we've had the last couple of years. So that was the distinction I saw. On some of the other things, I think, again, the idea would be if, for example, if you guys said code enforcement's a priority, we would spend more time and more money on that. We would budget more of an effort. Same thing with, high performing team. I think we would budget more money for potentially training or whatever we thought, we needed. And so that's kind of the idea of a priority that we would actually, really focus on it more. And then the one that nobody mentioned that I wanted to bring up was this idea of development, which I also think ties into economic development, but housing or commercial, and the city doesn't build projects. But if that was a priority, we could try to do what we can to be, I don't know, to accelerate some of the applications or just try to be get some more of those things done. But if that's, so I just wanted to point that one out too.
I think that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, I wanted to
Thank
add
you,
to
Tom.
that too. I wanted to go back and so thank you for mentioning that. And I also would love to spend some time on the philosophy that we all have and the direction that we want Sutter Creek to grow and what we want it to look like, so that when we're deciding on the specifics, we're all on the same page with regard to the general. I mean, I know we have a general plan and specific plans for things that have been passed, but just to really spend some time on what we want this town to look like and where we want to leave it in 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, and the vision that we all have together.
I think something along the lines like a vision or a mission statement, not to formalize or put anything in stone, but I think coming out of this meeting, coming out to our constituents, our public, our town, is to, out of this meeting, maybe focus on how we can summarize with some type of vision or mission statement that points to the priorities that we have.
I think my understanding as we went through the table in response to you, Tom, with the economic development, I feel like we all wanted to leave that on the list, and that would include, commercial and
I think it's a little different.
retail.
It would be more of a focus working with Aaron on planning. And again, there may not be things that are in the city's power, right? We're waiting for developers to come in with projects, but we could look and see if there are other ways we could encourage some development in specific areas.
Would not commercial and housing development come underneath the broader economic development title?
I mean, I kind of view it as a separate thing, but, say that project with 150 homes, I think if that got built, there'd be a lot more people here, living here, spending money here. So it has a natural economic development impact.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would love to spend some time on how we can best execute that so that it is, obviously there's always going to be a burden for more people being here, but that it can overwhelmingly be a benefit and not putting it so that every time someone leaves their house, they have to get in a car. And I just think that we're so lucky that we live in a place that was developed before the automobile, and we don't have the traffic that the suburban areas. And I think Sacramento is one of the top growing regions of the country, is my understanding. And people say, oh, well, there's not going to be that kind of push to Amador, but I don't know why there wouldn't be. I mean, the land is relatively cheap here still. It's commutable in the, some people, my daughter's commuting in the Bay Area, like over an hour and a half. So an hour drive with no traffic is doable. So I would love to see us really hone in on a plan that would make the development benefit us, and it'd be a larger town, but with the same benefits that we have now, or the same, positives.
Yeah, I agree, and I would, come back to our team development. I think if we intentionally prioritize and support, the development of a high-performing team, and this team, it has a multiplying effect, because really the people doing the work shape the outcome here more than policy, or at least as much as policy. So I think if we could support that effort, it spills into all these other categories. If we, increase communication or better improve communication, internally and externally, I think that we would have more cooperation and voluntary compliance safety-wise when we're talking about code enforcement. I think it influences economic development because, confidence in our city is what will help bring people here, make the decision to invest here. And, if we create the opportunity internally where we can value excellence and support it and reward it, I think that it's the best way. Obviously, it all comes around. Every single thing comes back to, our limited resources. And I think if we don't make that a soft priority, it's a real priority. That's the most cost-effective way to, develop lasting results out of our limited resources. And, I'm not saying this, we're spending a lot of time later talking about metrics and, all these other things, but I'm talking about the philosophy of supporting and investing in the team that is doing this work, I think will get us the best results.
I can just kind of merge in with that. And I agree, Claire. So I'm wondering if we replace priorities 1 and 2 with 3 and 4. And then I would like to see then, just because I agree, a high-performing city team should lead to code enforcement and safety improvements, that maybe high-performing team and housing and or commercial development move up the scale into maybe 3 and 4.
I think we should really talk about what you guys mean by that, because again, we talk about the budget. I think we have a very strong team for the amount of money we have. And we get an incredible amount done with a small general fund, when you look at other cities. So, I hear what you guys are saying. I'm not sure you know, when it comes to things like code enforcement, that's probably going to take more money and more time focused on code enforcement. It's not just going to happen um, because of this other priority. So I just want to caution you guys that I don't think saying that if we focus on kind of this high performing team, it's going to solve all the other problems, right? I do think fundamentally it's a budget issue. You know, it's the amount of people we have and the level of salaries we can afford. So I think it's worth going down a level of detail to kind of what you guys expect, right?
This just came, I hadn't thought of this prior, but possibly we could put some money into education for staff, because I know that's been really instrumental to me to go out and hear experts talk about it and then bring it back.
Yeah.
That I would love to do that.
I'd really like to get more people involved. Maybe Jim, you can talk about like the training we already do, right? And if we had more money, is there more training that you would want to do?
So, thank you for the discussion, starting the discussion about training on the police end. And I know we mentioned this before. I remember having a discussion with council about this in the past. We have pretty rigid requirements in the state of California for peace officers to stay certified. This last week, we went through a state audit, which we do every year. And based upon our budget, it's always a stretch. You know, we got through it. We got positive remarks from the state. Most certainly, more money, at least on the police end for police officer training, is beneficial. Typically, each year, I use our training funds to just get through the basic, what you have to do to stay certified training. So in terms of additional training, we always fall a little bit short in terms of enrichment. I try to find things that are close, that are free. This last couple of years, I've been able to use a grant to get that done. But I can tell you on our end, at least, myopically for us, more money would help us expand the training expertise of the officers. So that would be helpful.
I think that's a great example, Jim, of how we can help and support the team, you know, and empower the team. And there was also mentioned in the public works section of this that there's some wastewater education, you know, that along the same lines, if we can, you know, offer that. I'm sure there's something in finance, Mason, that can help you guys out. I'm sure it goes all the way around the board, but I think that
Let's hear. I mean, so Dan, what would you use if you had more training dollars? Is there things you would do?
To be honest, I don't even know where we would spend that money because we do all of our training for our wastewater operators, and then it's more finding, sorry, it's more finding the experts to come in and talk to us. So it'd be more like freeing up my time so that I could teach the guys more about wastewater. We would do like refresher classes and stuff like that. But there's not, I don't know, Public Works doesn't change that fast. You know, there's not that many emerging technologies. So I don't know that it would be the best. I feel like we get the most bang for our buck out of like spending more money on Christmas lights or something that everyone can see, you know, because I feel like that people acknowledge that more, you know, and it's something tangible that they can see. And so they feel more of a sense of community when they have that. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on that.
What about if we had specific equipment like striping or whatever? Is there areas there?
It's a matter of people. We don't have the people to operate it. So, I mean, you can
Yeah.
spend the money on the fancy equipment, but if we don't have the operators to run the stuff and to be trained on it all the time, we're just not that big of a unit, you know? And so if you get these one-off specialty things, it's kind of like every year I have to do a bunch of reports. Well, I only do it once a year. So it takes a long time to kind of remember how to do it and then get into it. And so with the larger city, you know, you might have a person that's specialized in striping or, you know, specialized in this one area, and he does it all the time. Well, around here, you probably do it once or twice a year. So it's very hard to be an expert at that. It's almost better to take your money and go to a consultant and say, hey, come in here, do it right, and then go away. You know, so we don't have to have that equipment all the time, spend for maintenance. I mean, you just get into, if you have too many things, then you have too many maintenance objectives to keep it running in the tip-top shape and to keep your people trained. I just don't think it's I don't think it would be a smart use of our money, because we don't have the staff and the problems like to keep doing
Well,
that.
you'd be paying for that equipment 365 days a year and using
Exactly.
it just at a fraction. So I would imagine a lot of that makes sense to contract out.
Yeah, kind of like how we contract engineering, we contract, planning and stuff like that. Like we don't, it's just, it doesn't require a full-time staff person, but it's something that we need to have done. So we have an expert come in and do it real fast and then they go away, kind of thing.
Is there any preparation planning that we need to do for the requirements for the new wastewater treatment?
Yeah,
plant?
that's what we are trying to do. I mean, we're trying to do classes, we're trying to level up. So, I mean, but it's not that we only need one level up. It's not like we need to find somebody that going for a 1 to a 5. We just need a 2 to a 3. We need a 1 to a 2. So that's very doable. And we're already working into that right
So
now.
within your current budget or within our current
We're already
budget,
trying to do that.
we're capable of doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody over here have some input? Rich?
Good morning.
One sec. Is that a wireless remote?
Yeah. It was.
Well,
Yeah, it's being,
You do because there's Zoom
Public
people,
meeting.
but I was going to say maybe you could bring it over there and you guys could share it.
It was
Yeah.
working this morning.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, you could take it
There we
to the
go.
comfort of your seat, guys. And
Good, good.
Yeah.
I can take it home. Rich Murphy, just a citizen of Sutter Creek here. I'm in construction, project managing, estimating, electrical. Just a couple items real quick, listening to you all about training. So the guys that that work for me or work under me, I should say, they're union, we're a union shop. So they're doing their own thing as far as their requirements, they're required to be trained on certain things, and the union takes care of that. I understand Public Works is different on that. However, what we find that spends what we get back mostly is efficiency, crew morality. So is your crew happy with the job they're doing? Are they always upset with their leader? So I find ways, and this is, when you do project managing or upper management, that you have to find ways to be efficient. One way to be efficient is when you send your crew out or a guy out to do a particular job, when they get there, everything's laid out for them. The material's laid out for them. Their task is laid out for them. So they're not wasting time running back and forth to the store, to the wholesale house, whatever it is. So just like I said, I know that efficiency, and especially at this level, because there's a lot of freedom that guys have out there. And my guys do too, that work for me. They have a vehicle and my foremen take vehicles home. So we're always trying to figure out in a good, positive way, how to reinforce what our guys are doing, how to make them happy with what they're doing, and set some goals, some incentives, if you will, so the guys feel good about what they're doing. Okay, I understand the city workers under microscope. I get it. I see them all the time. So that's one more issue you have to kind of deal with. How do you deal with that? How do you let the public know a little bit more about what our guys are, what your guys are doing? You visit them on a regular basis. How you doing? How you feeling? That's all to me as a project manager or a public works director. That's what you got to figure out. That's what you got to figure out. You got to figure out how to incentivize people, your workers. And it's a big deal. I mean, labor's a big deal. I mean, you look at your budget, I'm sure that's a majority of your budget is your labor. not just hourly rate, but the whole package. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's just a little input for me, and I struggle with it. I've been doing project management for over 30 years, and I struggle with it every day because every individual that you have working for you, you have to find the way to deal with them, or or incentive, like I said, make them happy about what they're doing. And like I said, it's a tough job. I get it. But you just, maybe collaborate with other, public directors, on city sizes that you have here. How do they get their guys to be a little more efficient and be happy about what they're doing? That's what it's all about, right? I mean, it's about what you just did a project and you feel good about what you just did. So anyway, just my 2 cents worth. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be other stuff that I might think about.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
Aaron, Mason, Pam, oh, Jim. Great.
So I do have a comment, mainly about the priorities, okay? We're talking about beautification, code enforcement, safety improvements, et cetera, et cetera. And I will point out something too. A lot of these priorities, you can actually classify all into one. I'll give you a perfect example of what I mean. When people are heading northbound into Sutter Creek, what's the first thing they see? They see this junkyard that sits there on the corner of Main on Ridge and 49. I mean, if we were to look at the code enforcement, I can guarantee there are several safety issues in regards to that. If you guys were to focus on the code enforcement of that issue, number one, it would beautify that area because it get all that garbage out of there. Number two, it'd make everybody safer because you won't have the debris that's on there. And number four, it's not out of control. So, I mean, if you were to look at it in a different kind of light, I'm going to tell you right now, Sutter Creek is one of the most beautiful cities ever. Okay, but there's these things that start to grow and they become a bigger problem. So unless you get something like that you can literally just probably, literally when I look at these priorities, you can literally combine them all into one issue and focus on this issue all at once. It's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Jim, are you saying that the one issue you combine them to is code enforcement?
What do you think about it? There's a code enforcement issue, right? Okay, and we've had these issues happen before, correct? We've had these issues happen before, and I can think of several places in Sutter Creek where the junkyard was so out of control that it was causing safety issues. It was causing code enforcement issues. We were getting complaints about the beautification of our city. So you think about it, if there is safety issues, and there might be several things that, safety officers like fire departments or, code enforcement officer, can look at, then you're literally making sure that all these these businesses that are not following the codes of the city, they follow their codes, they clean up their stuff, they beautify the city. It's a win-win-win situation.
I agree. Thanks for clarifying. I think it has a compounding effect.
Yeah.
And all of these things really do. And just to be clear, when I was listing my priorities, I do think they have a compounding effect. But if we're making our list of 4, to Tom's point, I think code enforcement needs to be on it this year because it does. We've learned it takes time and it's going to take money. And we've also learned that the more time passes with these things, the more festering and harder they are to solve.
Thank you, Jim.
If I could just add on to the code enforcement, just from my professional experience over the last 20 years, I do, and hearing that investing in a high quality team is important to the city, I do think it's probably best to kick it up a notch to have a designated code enforcement person. I think of the cities I've worked in over the last 20 years and the ones that had someone there a half a day a week, a dedicated code enforcement person had many less issues. And what I've seen this when I was in Plymouth and in Jackson and now here, it's like they just grow. And if you can't stop them at the beginning, they're just out of control.
Yeah.
Tom, what do
Agreed.
we do work with a code enforcement person? Aaron saying a half a day a week. What is our current deal?
Yeah, so again, we tried a couple of things. PD was doing it when I got here. Tried that for a while, and then we have Larry White through WGA. Larry's done code enforcement for a long time, but he has a very soft touch. He tries to encourage people to comply. And he's also our building inspector, and I think he's really sensitive to our budget and our costs. So I think he's kept his hours pretty small. I mean, I'd have to go back, and maybe Mason has an idea, but like month to month, it's a few hours in code enforcement, right? So one thing would be to tell Larry to ramp up the hours. Another thing would be to maybe, find somebody else. Pam has some code enforcement experience. So Pam, Larry, and I met, and then Pam's planning to go out with Larry on our two largest ones, which are both junkyards. But yeah, I think Aaron has a good point. I mean, it's just more hours dedicated to it. So
I think, well, the hours, and I think you've hinted also as to the approach, whether we have a process of number of warnings before some type of, resolution or, I don't want to say penalty, but conclusion. So if we have that already in place, steps in terms of, okay, notification, warning, satisfaction.
Yeah. And we've talked in the past, again,
Do we have
the
that?
fear is some of the worst cases. If the person just walked away, the city could have millions of dollars of cleanup with nobody to do it, and it would fall on us, right? So we're trying to thread that needle where we get it cleaned up and the city is not on the hook for anything.
I definitely feel what you're saying, but to Aaron's point, I think we maybe need to have two different approaches. We also need to nip stuff in the bud before they start becoming a problem. And, police did it before for us, which we were grateful for. There's some thoughts, including from police, that maybe it's not the best job for somebody with a badge and a gun to show up, and, like parts of it probably were not the most appropriate, but you guys are out there. Certainly Public Works sees this stuff and understands this stuff and knows this stuff as well as anybody. I would imagine finance, has some understanding on what's going on with these things and some input. So I do think we need to, what we've been doing is not working. So I think we need to come up with a plan. I think everybody in this room should give some input on that plan before we decide which way it's going to go. Not to say that it all needs to be handled internally. Somebody probably does need to do this for us. But if we could give that person or, firm or whatever it's going to be, clear direction on what we're looking for, that comes from all of you guys, I think that would be really helpful.
I love Aaron's idea too, because, and Jim, with regard to that, the dump, whatever, the hoarding situation on 49, we've got to address that. It's outrageous. And if there's someone that comes every Monday morning and is like, hey, like, you need to clean this up. And they're like, oh, yeah. But then they come next Monday morning, they're like, no, you really do. And it just, I think that would be a good tactic, because it's really easy to, not obviously, but clearly there's a problem up there. Like, this is not okay behavior, and it will grow. And I think there's someone living in that place too, because I was up getting my car looked at, and it was early morning, and guys coming out with no shirt on, like clearly waking up. So there's a lot, and it is part of the gateway. And I think it reflects poorly on us if we just keep letting it happen. And the one up this way is more hidden. But when it came to my attention and I can actually see it from my house, I was like, whoa, that's just outrageous I don't see that in other than the homelessness crisis in other cities too much.
So I do want to kind of keep us on schedule. I think we're at a point where we really need
Do
to.
I want to keep
get
us on
there.
schedule? Yeah, for sure. But I have my own notes, but I am not certain they're right. If we were taking this conversation and coming up with 4 or 5 priorities out of it, it looks like wastewater treatment plant stays firmly on there. And then, the financing of it specifically at this point, I think that's, Tom, you've told us that's really the phase that, Schneider's doing the planning. We need to figure out how we're paying for it. I'm a little unclear on if everybody wants to keep budget as its own item right now. I think we kind of have a system in place. We have a framework. We're doing the long-term financial forecasting, and obviously the budget drives everything. So I'm not sure development-wise how much needs to be done. It sounded like everyone wanted to leave economic development on there. And I don't know if I really heard it or if I just wanted to hear it, but I think code enforcement, at least some of us wanted to prioritize that this year, and staff development. So empowering staff to have some ownership in all of this process and supporting that. That's how I heard it, but I could be very wrong. So
That's
that table, does that sound right from what we all talked about?
I could agree with that. My only concern is I just keep going back in my mind. There's a little rental space about when we adopted our last budget, that this is sustainable only for the next 3 to 5 years. And my concern is if we don't keep budget up within our sights of paying attention to on a regular basis, that those 3 to 5 years are going to come sooner rather than later. And if we don't plan now, I don't want to face in 3 years like, ooh, maybe a couple years ago we should have done this. So that
I can
that-
assure you, the budget is top of mind.
Yeah,
It,
for sure.
again, at my point was, we're not going to be investing in new software. We're not going to, we don't have a new, we could, but it's not right now. We don't have a new revenue tax measure or anything. So again, I hear what you're saying, Julia, and just, rest assured, it's always there. But what we're saying now is it's an ongoing focus, but it's going
to
be.
me, everything that we have or will decide as a priority will have an obvious impact on that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's the one commonality, but it's again, there's that rental space of 3 to 5 years. And what do we do before then to avoid a disaster?
I think regardless if we keep it on or off, I think when we establish these priorities, we do a good job each budget year to scrutinize it in a way, not only for sustainability, but also to make sure that it aligns with these priorities. So I think regardless if it's on the list or not, we do a good job and spend quite a bit of time making sure that it meets our goals and expectations for the upcoming fiscal year. So I think like I said, whether or not it's explicitly stated here, we do a good job, both council and staff, to make sure that it aligns with what we all agreed we need to prioritize in the next year, while also trying to be sustainable. And so whatever we decide, I think just based on that fact, it doesn't necessarily need to be on this list, but it does free up a spot for us to maybe prioritize another item that we can scrutinize and make sure that fits in within the picture of that next budget, and make sure that we're making right steps towards what we think is valuable for the
Yeah,
city.
thank you, Mason. And I hope you didn't get
No.
out of my message any scrutiny on your
No.
part or, but I would like to see any, like what I.
Is it a mouse?
Are you guys switching places? Is to whatever we have as a, statement coming out of this meeting,
Yeah.
the public, I think, is curious. I've had public people, ask like, well, what do you think? What do you think? That we point out that whatever priorities we have do align with a continual sustainable budget.
Sure.
That's well put, Julia,
Yeah.
and I think it is, but I'm picturing our future meetings for the next year, right? Where
Yeah.
Tom reports on these things. Tom and everybody else reports on these things. And under each category, budget is kind of an item. You
Has
know,
to be.
I think
it's
a clear
encompassed
message,
in
though,
all of them. And I
Yeah.
think that the difference between last year and this year in terms of that is last year, maybe last 2 years, Tom and Mason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we did Andy Heath, we did Tyler, and we did Measure P. So there were 3, in progress projects
Yeah.
pertaining to the budget that are wrapped up.
Yep.
So, it's still
I think now it's time to
rule
try and-
call.
I think now it's time to try and spend some time and effort on really getting the most value out of those tools that we spend our money on, which is what my staff is working on. And which, I mean, that's in my goals, but just trying to get some ROI on what we spent money on, that's kind of the goal. So yeah, that's, the budget drives all activity. I mean, it has to, that's one our limited resource. So I think I think it comes up, for everything.
Yes.
So
I have an idea. Since if budget comes off your actual numbered listed priorities, maybe there's a way to incorporate it into the vision or mission statement.
That's what I
If
was
That's
thinking
what you're
toward, yes.
always
Sure.
working towards or always reminded of.
Yeah, that's kind of, you said
Yeah.
it much more simply than what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a
It's
good idea.
always going to be
Yeah.
on people's minds.
But I think that needs also to be relayed to our community that, this is why we have these priorities.
So I
because-
was gonna, so just to recap, and again, if you guys want to make a motion or indicate if there's a majority that supports this, but to replay, so again, a priority around the wastewater treatment system, really the whole system, but with a particular focus on the financing of the new plant. Continue to focus on economic development, which includes tourism and creation of new jobs. Focus on code enforcement, in particular our worst offenders, I guess. And then I liked how you worded it, Claire. So focus on staff development, kind of empowerment to create high performing teams. And then maybe we have a sentence that says supporting all of these priorities through a sustainable budget,
What's
is
stated?
critical. Or
I would modify the code enforcement one a little bit. I don't think we need to just focus on the big problems. We do need to focus on those,
Yeah.
but I think we need to have a plan in place so we don't let some new big problems incubate and, be born.
I
So
will
kind
say-
of a two-pronged approach, have a system in place to nip stuff in the bud
Mhm.
and not just nip problems in the bud, to really guide people who are trying to do something and, help point them in the right direction before a problem starts.
City Hall, I feel like the public is good about coming and letting us know if there's like a potential issue, at least from our standpoint. And when they do come in with a complaint or a concern, there is a good system in place for routing those complaints to the correct people through MMS, to make sure that it's assigned to somebody to take care of, or at least they're aware that it's going on. And if we continue to leverage that, I think that's a good tool we can use to sort of mitigate upcoming problems. So from City Hall's perspective, that's kind of like our best route to notify the appropriate party early onset when it's reported.
You're talking about code enforcement.
Correct. It's all of it. It's code enforcement. It's roadway, like potholes. It's all of it. But code enforcement is definitely a piece that we do leverage, but can continue to leverage to make sure that people are notified early on.
I would love to add under the tourism, economic development, and then the tourism, the beautification, because I think that it could be more than the parts. I think like the idea of the Christmas lights. So we know this is a destination at Christmas time. If we ramp this up a little bit, we get more press. You know, all of a sudden we got the Molly reel out from Sacramento. We're on the news. It's so darling here. And then you get an influx of shopping, tax dollars. Now you get AAA magazine, you make AAA, so the whole year that goes through. I think that those two are really linked.
So anybody else have anything to say, or can we move on?
Is there agreement that those are the
Oh.
priorities? Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can move on then. It's a good discussion. So we're going to go through departmental goals. Again, we're going to try to do this in the next hour. So I think I've told a lot of the departments, but kind of make it quick. We'll have each of you go through these. And then again, we've just spent, an hour talking about these priorities. And I just want to stress, we're really talking about, it is going to guide a lot of the day-to-day activity, but the priorities are kind of the 10% of the iceberg above the water, and 90% of what we do is the day-to-day stuff that just has to get done. And, everybody should understand that. And I appreciated Rich, again, labor is our biggest expense. And most of that is just the day-to-day stuff that the city has to do. So, we're going to give you guys an overview of departmental goals. These are goals between me and my staff. We're going to continue to refine these and change these as we need to throughout the year. I think from the council, really your input on, at the high level goals, correct. And if you have ideas about metrics, the idea with metrics is not to create a lot of extra work, but ideally these are things that come out of doing the work that really help make reporting efficient. And again, it's not just on dollars, it's really on being efficient and performance. And then we're gonna go through some of these departments fairly quickly because I wanted to spend time on Public Works, which is our largest department. And we've also had a lot of discussion through the financial ad hoc about the police department this last year. That's our other large department. So that's why Public Works in this meeting. So I told Derek he didn't have to be here today. So I'm going to do legal and engineering. Again, when you think about a goal for our legal department, it's really to protect the city from large lawsuits. We've been, I think, pretty lucky, or we've navigated things well the last couple of years. We really haven't had any large legal issues. Derek's company also has an employment attorney who's helped on our labor negotiations. And then the real priority and the thing that I'm really kind of pushing Derek and myself is to complete this ARSA dissolution. It's hung out there for a long time. We need to get it done.
Is the legal involvement with ACTC also?
Yeah, everything legal. Yep. Any comments on the legal objectives?
No, but maybe just a comment on objectives overall. I think that one thing that I'd like to see, and it has been discussed through all the departments, and I think that's something we run into, especially the last couple of years when we've had several new staff members, is through all the departments, we need to just have some SOPs. We need to document what we do and how we do it. And, I would, maybe not so much in Derek's department, some departments more than others, but I would like to see that incorporated into all of these things.
Okay. And then on the engineering side, again, this is a contracted service. We expect a high level of service. And these are basically the same goal metrics that they proposed last year. So turnaround time on parcel map reviews. We'll see about maybe adjusting code enforcement. Managing projects on time and on budget. So again, we've had very few change orders on these projects we've done the last couple of years. And so I think we've been doing a good job overall in terms of project management and coming in on schedule and on budget. And then, if we need engineering assistance for grants, we expect our engineering partners to help us with that.
Do they initiate the research for grants, or is that left up to you or your staff to
So,
and then reach out to them?
yeah, it's really us. We're working with California Consulting that monitors all the grants, federal and state. Occasionally they'll say, hey, we heard about this grant or that grant, but it's not we're not relying on them to do that. Yes. All right. Aaron.
Oh, okay. So unlike some of the other departments in the city, obviously I'm a contractor. And so a lot of these objectives for the planning department are outside of cost recovery through applications. So the majority of my rate comes from applicant cost recovery, and then there's a portion that the city is obviously paying for our planning services. So with these objectives, I do think it's something that council should consider, that this would be coming from your budget versus an applicant reimbursing the city for my costs to do these. But the first one, to provide efficient, transparent, and consistent development review. And that kind of ties back into what Tom's saying about how can we, obviously we are not building things here in the city or in the planning department. We cannot force developers to do things, but how can we get them through the process more smoothly? So some of our applications are out of date, and that's something that Holly and Aaron and I originally started last year to kind of try to update those, to get all the information on those applications so people are not submitting and then I'm sending them a letter, oh, I need this, this, and this, because it wasn't originally on the application. And also providing potential developers or builders or citizens a clear understanding of what the process would look like and what the timeline would be. And by creating some of those more like detailed handouts, we might reduce some staff time and the time it takes me to field these types of questions, because I get a lot of questions like that. What's my zoning? How do I, what could I put here? And if they could easily access that information online, you might reduce some staff time there.
And I appreciate you pointing out what's cost recovery and, what of this is on us. And I get that. But the first objective here, that's really cost recovery stuff. That looks to me like it's how applications and things are processed with the applicant or the project. And then 2, 3, and 4, to your earlier point, I think are services, that you're doing beyond that. Is that
I think
correct?
some of kind of the administrative tasks associated with it, getting the handouts updated, getting flow charts, getting that stuff is not cost recovery, because it's not going to a specific application. And then proactively monitoring and following up on stalled projects. So when I first started and when Sandy was here at the city as a city manager, her and I we called in all of the applicants and we sat down and had one-on-one meetings with them to see how can we help. And so again, that's kind of a gray area. Do we charge it back to them? I don't know. Their application's been stalled for 5 years. Who knows if they're going to pay that? Or do we pay that as a city, hoping that we're going to get their applications moving again? And that was really helpful. It got a few applications, I'd say, off the list, as in they're dead. And then a few more going again forward. So, and that's something that I think Tom and I should sit down and do. I don't think we have as many stalled applications as we did when I started here. We have these big ones that are just kind of pending, looming, balls in their court. We're ready to go. But again, I can't control if they respond back to my emails or if they revise their plans in a timely manner. So, and one thing I forgot to mention, I did pull some of these out of our general plan and housing element, since that is kind of in the planning department, in the planning world, the goals and policies and objectives that we are always working towards. Sure. So again, educate the community on ADUs. So that helps with our housing element, that helps with providing potentially more rental properties within the city. You know, we currently ADUs are not for short-term rentals, but you can be used for long-term rentals. Could help with other situations like allowing people to like safely age in place more. You bring a parent, a grandparent into your ADU, things like that. So the state's always changing those rules along with lots of planning rules and regulations, but it would be nice to provide a workshop or more detailed handouts for people who are interested in learning more about those.
Would putting some information in our sewer bills that we mail out be something we could do?
Yeah, and that's kind of on my third topic is contributing to the newsletter, kind of on what's happening in the planning world or new planning laws or things like that, just quarterly or twice a year or something, having a little blurb about planning in there so people can understand more about it. And number 3, I think also ties back to working with Derek and his firm about providing more education about the rules and what's going on at the state and HCD level. Again, stuff that's always changing. Most of our planning commission meetings are, I want to say like reactive. We have an application, we're doing that, we're reviewing that, less trainings and things like that. So that's something we can add on throughout the year. And number 4, promote high quality design and community character. I think what triggered me to think about this one was the short-term rental application we had for the house on historic Main Street, and kind of thinking about some of the concerns regarding the potential impact to the historical character of that house. And then also the discussion on trees and how we want to make sure we're preserving and replacing trees. So those are 2 items that I would like to see us complete this year of getting those ordinances updated and adopted.
Is it, I don't know if this is even a fair question, Erin, is it common knowledge for someone who wants to come in to the city to know that there is even a planning website link?
I mean,
Yeah, it's on the
It's-
website.
it's on the
Yeah.
website.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that I think would be really helpful on the website, and this is something we have in Jackson, is you can go in and you type in your address and it will pull up your property information with a link to your zoning. And so that eliminates that email to me.
How am I
The
zoned?
10 emails I get a week from real estate agents that say,
What's the zone?
so-and-so is interested in this, what can they do there?
Is that something you can help with, Pam?
Yes, I can. That's Mayor.
Cool. So
And then I would imagine some of the other things you're talking about, putting on the website or making more available, she
Yeah.
could.
Just keep it moving. Mason?
I had a
Sorry.
I had a couple of things on Dan's notes on the planning one and then one for myself. I don't know that it needs to be written on here, but there was feedback given from the council and also the planning commission recently about staff reports and just how to mark, what is our standards versus what is recommended. And I think we talked about italicizing some things. And so anyways, just following through on those things. And Dan's comment was, he appreciated the improvement in processing applications, timely and predictable, but he didn't feel it was a measurable metric. And, if it was measurable that something could be done in so many days with a certain level of accuracy versus things like Sutter Creek Ranch, which has been going on for years and years and years. And then only recently did we discover the requirement for setback and livestock, and just how important streamlining that process is for economic development.
So one thing I have added to my staff reports in the last year or so is hyperlinks to at least the municipal code. And I know I've received some good feedback from the commissioners about that. So reading them online, brings you to the municipal code so they can I think continuing to do that and what is coming from the municipal code versus what is my interpretation or recommendations.
Okay. Are we ready? Move on. So Mason.
Yeah. So glad we identified a similar objective or priority. I definitely think um, between myself and my staff, however they can help, making sure that we are pushing forward this wastewater treatment plant funding, strategizing. This is going to be a multi-decade obligation, I could imagine, and making sure that we are making the right calls and the right decisions with the most information possible is going to be crucial for the sustainability of the city financially. So that's definitely going to be a priority for between me, Tom, Dan, and the consultants to make sure that, we're identifying all the needs and cost savings and things and how we're going to fund the obligations for the next however long to be able to build this plant. And then, similarly, we were talking about economic development and how it ties with some of the goals that we want to do for the year. We are leveraging this grant that we have with the Sierra Business Council to boost businesses in town and get some people, hopefully some jobs and start some businesses in town to boost activity. And it's a self-feeding thing. So, you have jobs, they work here, they eat here, they stay here, they live here. And that cycle helps keep the city sustainable as well through sales tax and just stimulating the economy in general. So definitely want to leverage that and work with the grant people to make sure that we're getting the most out of it. And similar to what I talked about earlier as well, we were fortunate enough in my office to have the new set financial software, as well as a new ballot measure with Measure P, and just getting ROI on those investments that we've already done between me and my staff, make sure that we're squeezing as much juice out of those as we possibly can with the money we spent is going to be our top priority for the next year, probably next year or two, I would say, just to make sure that we're leveraging every tool we have at our disposal for the money we're spending. Because trust me, I know money's tight, so you want to get as much as you can out of every dollar spent, and that's our goal. And happy to work with Aaron on some of the ease of forms on the website. I've identified that as an opportunity as well. I've been working on a couple of templates for online forms that the public can fill out and have it do a lot of the work for them instead of good old paper and bringing it into the office. If we can have those, but also an online tool for people who might just want to do it digitally, I think that will save staff time, and I think it'll make it easier for the public to do certain things. So working on that and getting those out to folks. But yeah, I think those are my department's goals for the year. Just, trying to keep up. It aligns, I think, with a lot of the goals that we've all agreed with here today for the next year, which is good. So.
Council, did you have anything to add to that? Jim? I did. I just wanted to add, and I feel like I say this a couple times a year. I hope I do, and maybe I don't say it enough, but the finance department is also the front door. And I don't go in there and sign checks anymore, but when I used to sign them in person, when I'd sit in there for 40 minutes, 3 different people would come in. And I think that the team in the front does an amazing job with customer service and handling a variety of things that go over all departments. And I think that takes a lot of their time and they do it really well. So I just want to acknowledge that. I was a little fuzzy, and I'm kind of always a little fuzzy, especially because Holly's job is split sort of with doing a lot of applications and then helping with finance. And I see it's in one of your priorities, Mason, to improve that process. And Aaron mentioned it too. So, it's great when the whole team works together. We also have a whole other full-time person that, we don't have a department objective for with Will. I would assume he could help with some of these things. I think that's a great project. And I think it will help all departments. I'm not exactly sure how it's financed. That's never quite computed to me. And then also, I appreciate you keep bringing up the return on the investment for all the stuff we did prioritize when budget was our priority last year. or we did spend on rather.
I look at this stuff all day, every day, and just how much money we spend on these things. I understand how valuable it is that the money that we spent on the things that we utilize in my office, they are essential. They may not be pretty, but they are essential. And, we did all agree to spend a little more money on our software and our reporting capabilities. And hopefully, it's customer facing activity as well with the online sewer portal and people paying online. We've heard great things from people, how it's easier for them. There's been hiccups, of course, as there always is with rolling out new software, but I think overall people are happier with the user interface. I think people are more comfortable using it. They understand it better on their end, and on our end, it's not as the user interface is, it's huge. Just being able to know and understand kind of what the software is trying to do and how to use it adds to efficiency. But we will continue to just leverage those tools and make sure that software works for us and we're not working for it. That's a big goal for us this year. And yeah, for the forums, I've always thought that was an opportunity for us just to digitize some things and make it online submittal. And it's 21st century stuff. It's always been an opportunity, and I think it's time for us to. And it's interdepartmental. It's planning, it's finance, it's public works, it's police, everyone has forms and everyone has these things that people have to come in and get in person or try and navigate the website to find and print and fill out and bring in person. It's a little clunky, and I think for the public and for staff, finding ways to make that easier will help too. So
I can't imagine any department, if we're going to separate police, public works, finance, and engineering and planning, of a department that's faced more change and challenges in trying to make it easier for others. So I would like to express kudos and thanks to you, Mason, and your staff, to Holly, for enduring all these changes to try to make life easier for the rest of us.
They're good sports. My staff has been good sports. And trust me, they appreciate it as well. It's been helpful for them.
I think they were happy to get off of moms, right?
Everyone is. Everyone has been very happy to get off of moms. So we will do everything we can to make sure that, I know we've all talked about the reports and how we want to make sure that those are a little more user friendly for the public. That's definitely one of the top priorities for the software this year. And I have some time booked with everybody to go over those, and we'll get them there, I promise. From everyone's input.
Right. Thank you, Mason.
All right, Jim.
First, I wanted to comment about the budget, and I want to kind of comment on what council said and what staff has said. I want you to know, budget kind of drives everything we do in the police department. As you look at your department heads here, every discussion we have collectively in our staff meetings, budget's always the forefront of what we do. In terms of the police department, I balance public safety with the budget that we have. So I want to make sure you know that it remains a priority for us, certainly at the police department and your staff here. As you look at my priorities up there, at the end of each one, I want you to add the word budget, because it impacts everything we do. Every decision we make in terms of public safety, in terms of staffing, budget's important to us. So that is never lost on us. I've got 4 priorities listed there, 4 objectives, and they're not in any particular order. So certainly the number 1 is not the most important. They're all equally important. The first one listed is achieve sustainable and healthy staffing levels. That's important for many, many reasons. It keeps folks on the streets, keeps people available for calls for service. It's just the right thing for us to do. Maintaining full staffing, I'm happy to say that we gave a job offer to a candidate this week, and I suspect she'll start mid-February, which is great. So that will bring us up to full-time staffing of 5 full-time officers, me in my capacity, and at present we have 3 reserve officers. The next thing listed there is increase reserve officers by 1. I wanted to comment about the reserve officers because last year we brought on Philip Wasner as a reserve. He's a full-time police officer somewhere else. He comes and helps us as we need. He has been a godsend for us. When he covers shifts, he's compensated, but it's at a lower rate than the officers would get at overtime. So there's a cost savings there. It's bringing on a new person to the team that brings new expertise to us. These reserves are fantastic. The most tenured police officer we have at Sutter Creek PD is a reserve officer, Luis Hermosillo. He's been here, I think Sergeant Brewer's been here 15 years. Luis has been here 16 or 17. So we have some tenure with our reserves. It's a well-proven asset to the city and the police department. And my goal is to keep that up and I'd like to bring on one more. So we're looking to do that. We did a background on someone we thought would join the team, and that person didn't meet the criteria for us. And as I've said before to council, I'd rather have no body than the wrong body on your police department representing you. So we didn't move forward with that person. The next thing is tracking health and wellness. And I'm hoping none of what I say during my short time to talk to you is a surprise. I think I probably have said this to you all on different times, so I'll just reinforce it. Health and wellness for your police officers and all of your staff, and for you, is important. People, if you're not staying healthy, you're getting hurt, and that takes away from your ability to serve the public, takes away from your quality of life. So we have a great gymnasium here. We have challenges. You're all welcome to join us on these fitness challenges just to get a little bit better. You know, no one's probably going to run a marathon. If you do, that's great, but just to get a little bit better. The impact on health and wellness for you, and going back to the budget, is this. When they're healthy, they don't call in sick. And I've been a police officer well over 3 decades. I know you can't tell by looking at me, but it's true. Over 3 decades. And your police department has literally no sick leave. And I've never experienced that on the different police departments I've worked at and led. These officers don't call in sick. So I think the health and wellness contributes to that. And it also goes to their dedication to you all and to our citizens. Next thing is to improve levels to the community. And the first one listed there, and it's important to me, and my staff and I, we've spoken about this recently, is to maintain or improve response times. And we do a pretty good job at maintaining our response times. I'd like to improve it. Having that new officer will absolutely work on that. It's like having a blanket, and you know, if you're working on one call over here, your toes are covered, your right toes are covered, but another call comes out over here and you got to pull it over there. Sometimes if you have one officer on duty, it takes a while to get to a call. So having another officer with a swing shift kind of capacity is going to increase our ability to reach the calls for service a little bit faster. I talk a lot about the need and the importance of mutual aid in Amador County. So I would like to be able to get a report to you and let you know kind of how often we do mutual aid. I know when I report to Tom and I share some of our activities with him, it typically includes what we do in terms of assisting other agencies in mutual aid. But I'd like to find a way to quantify that to give it to you so you understand the relevance, the frequency, and the importance of that for us. Propose and improve security camera plan with the budget. So this week we received our second quote from a security camera company. Madam Mayor, it's the same company that you use for your schools. It's fantastic. So I'll be able to provide the city manager with 2 quotes to consider. Nothing is cheap. It's just the reality. And we do a good job. I can tell you Sergeant Brewer does this. I do it when I have people on my team do it. We're negotiating and trying to get the best deal. We cry poor. So I think we've gotten it down to the very best deal we can. And I'll provide that to Mr. City Manager. He can give it to you and you can make a decision as to what you need. I do think it's a priority. I think it's relevant and important to our city to have some sort of camera. Go ahead.
And it'll be an initial cost, but I could see where it would translate into a savings because the eye in the sky is sort of coverage, you know, in some areas while you guys are physically doing other things. You know, it seems to expand the reach.
Oh, definitely. It helps. I mean, it doesn't go to a call for service and protect someone in need, but it's absolutely 100% helpful and impacts our public safety in the city. So I'm excited to bring it to you, to give it to to Tom and for him to present it. And I'd be very happy to come back and present it myself and give you my positions on it in the future.
Just, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds to give you time to complete, but does the quote differences, does it make a difference of how many cameras and the placement?
Absolutely, it does. Every camera has a cost, and I know we discussed this before when we talked about body cameras. The new wave in terms of technology are subscriptions, so you pay every month. So there's, both of these have a monthly cost associated with them. That's just the reality of what it is. The system we have now is standalone and we own it, and it is not the best. In some ways it's great, in some ways it's failed us. So this new system, the technology is much better, but in terms of you making the decision on the cost, they're both subscription based, and I couldn't find anything else that's standalone other than what you get at Costco, and might work well for our home, but probably not for a community.
Well, the subscription-based ones too, I think, a lot of services are like that, and they have more flexibility. So if we get them here and we realize that we want them moved, or we're going to use them slightly differently, you can modify your subscription rather than owning something and add or
Correct.
delete things. And it seems like that would be a positive.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Again, it's, how it's prioritized into our budget. Again, that drives everything I do in terms of making decisions, and but I think we can find a way to make it fit. The next thing, and I think this is important, I've talked about it in the past, is to do a tabletop safety emergency exercise with fire department. There's a lot of locations in the state. OES has training on this, and it's important to go through an exercise like this where you say you have this major disaster. How are you going to deal with it? And it's easy to do it when you sit at a table with the people that are going to participate in managing that. And so everyone knows their responsibilities. Council has its responsibilities in that, and declaring a disaster and the implications of that, and council does, and planning, and we all have a part of that. And I think it's important for us to find time to do that, to manage that with Dominic and his staff, with council and your departments. So that's something I'd like to work into what we do next year. Improve our efficiency. Again, I'm hoping nothing I say here is a surprise to you, but we want to be able to return our phone calls within 2 days. That comes down to staffing and having folks there. We do the best we can with that, but I'm reticent to tell my officers, come off the street, every hour and return phone calls, because that's taking a police car off the streets. So I try to return them. The sergeant tries to. We now kind of coordinate with each other what calls come in. There's a lot of calls that come in. A lot of them are vendors, and a lot of things that, they say, hey, please give me a call. And we call back. It's a vendor trying to sell us something. So it's a balancing act in terms of safety. And I want to make sure we don't have people all the time on the phones. Our volunteers are very good about helping. When they're there, they can answer phones as well, but it's just a matter of getting folks in there. This last year, go ahead.
I don't want to get in the weeds with this, but, and I know we asked for this, and I appreciate it being on here. We had talked about phones finding some mechanism where calls were sent out to wherever y'all are. So you're not coming back to the office to necessarily answer the phone. And one of the reasons I ask that is because if somebody calls, how do you determine with, in the 48 hours, whether or not it's urgent if we're not hearing the message? I guess that's always kind of been the question in my mind. So I know we had talked when this came up, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, about if, all sorts of calls are forwarded to cell phones or or whatever. If there's something we can invest in or implement that would help that process.
Sure. So I want to go back to what we talked about before, Mayor. Initially, I don't know who suggested it, having the calls routed to the cell phone for the officers out there. That's inefficient. And it's inefficient because of what I mentioned just a few minutes ago. We may get a vendor and someone's calling, hey, this is Bob, give me a call. We call Bob back, and it's Bob trying to sell us a body camera. Well, that's taking the officer, taking his eyes off the streets, and those come in all the time. Emails come in all the time. So what we do now, and maybe this will answer it, Madam Mayor, the officers will come in a couple times a day. They may come in on their lunch break and they check the messages, they return them. We keep a log as to, the messages that came in and what happened to them. So we're being more efficient with it. If we had folks there, I mean, we can't afford more people right now. So we're doing the best we can. So they check it every couple times a day. The officers do, I do as
A
well.
couple of times a day, not every 48 hours.
That's typically what we do, yes. But we're trying to return them,
Every
within
48
2 days. But the officers will listen to it. Like Jim's on duty right now, and he'll probably listen twice today. When I'm there at the office, if the phone rings, I pick it up.
Sure.
So we do the best we can with that.
Thanks for the clarification.
just
Of course, there's a lot of vendors, but there's also, a lot of situations where people aren't quite sure or ready if they need the police and are tentative with the call, and it may be emergent,
I mean,
so.
this just came up a year ago. Jim changed a bunch of this stuff. I mean,
Cool.
I haven't heard any issues recently. Have you guys?
Well, I feel much better after he clarified that
Yeah.
they're heard a couple of times a day,
Well, yeah,
not every 48 hours. They're returned every
Yes.
48 hours.
correct. And I'm sorry if
I read that wrong then.
No, if I presented that the wrong way, I apologize.
I would assume too that if an officer will sense that something is more urgent and it's going to happen much faster than 48 hours in that situation.
Yeah,
Uh,
once they hear the message.
Yes, Jim, I feel like you wanted to say something.
So one thing I will say about the messages, these messages are designed for non-priority, low risk calls. When you call the police department too, if you call the regular business number, it is specifically, I can't say that word, specifically designed for lowest priority calls ever. If there is an emergency, it even says on the message, hang up and call 911, right? And
Yep.
as well as,
Thank you.
keep in mind too, one other thing I want to point out is we are dispatched off the sheriff's office. So the majority of the time when we get these calls, we have our dispatchers dispatch us to these calls. So if they leave a message or something, or what have you, it's usually going right to the sheriff's office to come to us. So that's kind of what I wanted to point out. So
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
That helps.
Any other comments about the phone stuff before I move on? Super. The next thing we mentioned, I talked about that earlier, is maintaining the required training. We get that done. It's always a stretch, but we get it done. I would like to be able to add one optional enrichment class for the officers. Let's say they wanted to learn traffic, or they wanted to ride a motorcycle for traffic enforcement. We'd be able to handle that training. Right now, I'm at the position where I'm just trying to get the regular training done, and it's a stretch. We do it. Not a grievance at all, but that's what I'd like to do in the future, is find a way to maybe enrich it and add more to what the officers are able to learn, which is, again, will provide better service for the community. In increasing time for the sergeant in the field. So again, I know I've said this before, we've had so many increases in the need for reporting that the sergeant handles a lot of that. And he spends a fair portion of his day in the station. So I'd like to get him out there a lot more than he's out there. No fault of his, he does the best he can, but there's so many reporting requirements, and given my schedule and my time there, he's got to pick up a lot of that slack. So we're working on that. We try to get our volunteers to help out with stuff, and they do, to the extent they understand what needs to be done. They're interested in doing it. But that's one thing I'd really like to do, is get him out there more, and he knows that as well. And the last thing is funding. Again, I'll finish where I started. Funding and money covers everything. It's probably the most important thing we do, is try to find ways to stretch our dollars. And this year, we're going to look for additional revenue opportunities. I know we talked before, and I'm again happy to help out with this at any level, is, parking kiosks. And that's something we won't bring in tons of money, but it will bring in something. There's always a cost associated with it, and you've got to share some of that money with the parking vendors, with the technological vendors, but maybe there's an opportunity. And we should probably look at that. Tom has talked about expanding coverage areas, and I know there's something in the work with that in fundraisers. So our police officers are going to put on a fundraiser dinner on May 23rd, and you are all welcome to come and spend lots of your money. And so we're doing the best we can to raise money through our foundation. So this will be the first foray into doing anything with the foundation. Yes.
Can you make sure you send us any of the promotions for that so we can share them with our other associations and groups?
Absolutely. Yep. So I'm done, but I wanted to say for me and on behalf of my staff as well, it's an honor to work here. And it's good to participate in something like this where we can talk through what is important, because what my priority is might not be yours. So it's important to hear what you have to say. It's important to hear what the citizens have to say, so I can guide kind of how we lead folks to make sure we're going all in the right direction. And I'm not going over here and you want me to go over here. I want to make sure we're going straight ahead together. So on that, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Did anyone in the public have anything to say?
Switch hats here, but, I'm also, I probably should have said this before, my wife and I also own a business downtown. And I think, to me, one of the biggest optics, I guess the word to use, that the police department does is, and I think it's in busy times, it might be twice a day. Jim, we see him a lot, walk up and down Main Street. It's awesome. I mean, it's to me, I don't know. I mean, I'm from Jackson, but I don't, the only time we used to see police in Jackson is when they were looking for somebody. Now, that's been years ago. So anyway, I just, thank you. I've only seen Jim, so he's the one I can, and the other thing I want to say is, and this is from the Sutter Creek Business Association side, and I wasn't here during the Parade of Lights. I did have 3 or 4 other citizens that live downtown were really frustrated. And I'm just passing this along to you because they said the traffic control was out of control. And I know in past you've had officers at different intersections along with Jackson helping you out. Not sure if that happened this year or not. I just know that I had, like I said, 4 people that live downtown here that were really frustrated about Badger Street. They couldn't get through there. So, you know, maybe next year something need to look at. Maybe there's no citizens parking on Badger Street during that event. I know that's extremely tough for citizens. However, it might free up if there's an emergency, fire trucks getting through town, how are they going to get through town? If there's emergency on Badger Street, how do they get there when the traffic was just, it was really impacted? So anyway, just a couple items. Just wanted, you know, more than anything, just say thank you.
Right on.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rich. Thank you.
Thank you for what you said about the officers walking downtown, and thank you for sharing the issues in terms of parking. So we take all that seriously. Thank you.
I think we should have a recess. Short,
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Right.
Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay. Did you guys do this, anything like this?
They wanted to, but they keep pushing.
We did it 2 years ago. I had
Okay.
used video business. This guy from University of Kansas. We did some.
Yeah.
That was good too.
All those residents. I saw one years ago, but it's not the same. Because this is a lot more. Now they have
Yeah, so Dan just stepped out of his internet, is our public works director, and that kind of falls in his responsibilities, so, I want to get in touch with him about that. So they have new pipe, old pipe, and they want all pipe. They paid for their, what's on their property. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the next step.
Yeah. It's probably after.
Sure, sure.
Oh, look, so I thought you need to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because it's on that highway, kind of like, but then you might feel it's really, someone said.
That's why I don't do social media. I don't have fans. So.
I understand that, but it's also like, from my perspective, it's really the way to ensure positive.
Yeah.
You know, you think about like, recreation.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I don't, but I just don't, I mean, I'm not out there posting. I'm not saying I don't hear about social media. I just- So. Her cousin. Bill's wolf is Gates is like, what's up, something, Rex Gates. She's a Linda Frank Gates. Is a cousin, Mara. Mara? I think so. Just because you haven't read, my wife has a cousin, multi.
Does it reflect on you?
Wow. City on city property. Private property. So that's.
He does, they like, they listened to the highway, that there was like rockets and they were outside. And I was like, am I really? The highway, and they help you.
A tech guy? I'm not an IT guy, but I know a bit about it.
You guys want to get started? You can pull out of today. And you don't.
Do you have a gavel? Yeah. We'll have to go through the last two pretty fast. Yeah, there's somebody coming in. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for coming this morning. I have some donuts.
Guys, we better get
I have
started.
some donuts. I said, you gotta.
Julia, Susan, don't make me bang my hammer.
You know what?
Hi.
How are you? One more month. 11 more months.
I don't know. I just don't really know. I think
Lord-
they're disposable.
George is in, Phoenix. Phoenix.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Another,
Yeah. Well, he likes it there. He spends summers in Oregon. He doesn't spend the summers down there. It's too hot. Winters are great.
Like an omelet steak.
Oh,
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I'm
Finish,
starving
Jeff.
and I can't eat any of that stuff. I wish. Keep skipping dinner. Yes. And then I wake up starving.
Claire.
I got
Once it gets on this network.
Okay, guys, we're gonna go back into session right now.
So we have about an hour left. Could I poll the council? Do you guys have any comments on the council procedures and protocols?
I only think that we have left the last couple of years, the whole adding an item to the agenda thing super wonky. I don't think we really, in this procedure, I think we're handling it fine. I don't think we need to really deal with it today,
Okay.
but
So
there's the
let's
two
try to-
agenda items every meeting, like council, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so let's try to get through this in like 45 minutes, then we'll have 15 minutes for the other two items.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, so we are on to Public Works, Tom, Dan. Tom, are you going to start or just straight to Dan?
No, straight to me.
Yeah. I'll help Dan when needed, but yes, mostly Dan.
So this is this on? Yep. This is meant to be more of a like discussion. So if you guys have questions, comments, I mean, a lot of this data can be manipulated. So if you have questions about it, please ask, because sometimes I did data analysis, then went back again and got a different conclusion. So sometimes very small little changes can make your data say different things. So anything that you have questions on, please stop me and let me know. So for 2025, the Public Works objectives, the first was to just increase our transparency, tell everybody what we're doing. I think a lot of times Public Works has the problem of being in the background, which you want Public Works in the background. You don't want them out there fixing stuff right in your way. It needs to be in the background before it becomes an issue. But then that's hard because people think that people aren't doing stuff, and so it's a fine balance to how much we tell the public and how much we deal with before the public even knows about it, So the first one is to improve our response time to residents. We use MMS to track every call issue that comes into our department. And I, this year, have gotten much better about, before we would just solve problems. We didn't actually track it. So we're actually adding issues to our MMS every day. And our goal is to respond to the customer within one day. And typically it's a couple hours. But just letting people know that we got their claim, we understand that something's happening, and we are looking into it, because sometimes we can solve it in, an hour or two. Sometimes it takes weeks to solve it, but the customers don't know that, and they shouldn't have to know that, so.
I'm sorry to interrupt right off the bat, but I think it would help us understand the whole rest of it. Can you explain what that means? What a customer issue is, because, is it a spill? Is it an accident? Is it a immediate repair? Is it,
Yes.
is it, so let's enter another classification, like things that come to me, say, that are gripes or continuing issues or things that people would like to see addressed that are not, clearly that's not in this metric, right? So what's the difference? And I think just an overarching comment on the whole thing, at some point, maybe in a future council meeting, I think it would be helpful to give us all, you don't need to show us the system, but an idea of what MMS is.
That's
You
just a
know,
database. Yeah.
Right, but how that works, like.
Yeah. So if somebody calls in, then I have to like log it in. So I have to put all its information into like a screen, and then it goes out to whoever I tell it to go out to. So it's just a tracking system, kind of used for maintenance a lot of times because.
Sure, but when we're looking at these metrics here, so let's say like the drains clogged on Badger Street,
Yep.
right? That's an issue. If we have, you can't see the stop bars on Spanish Street. Is that also an issue?
Yep.
Okay, so we're 71 out of 84 of our issues are complete this year?
Yeah, this year.
Okay.
Yeah. And out of the remaining ones, typically it's either a budget issue that we just don't have money for, like let's say the car sand road that's kind of slipping into the creek. We could fix that, but we don't have the budget to fix that. So we're waiting for a grant to come in to do that. So sometimes when these tasks come in, they're not solvable for us at that point. And they might not be solvable until we get money for that. So it ranges the gamut, I mean, and it'll be as stupid as, hey, the outlet in the community center doesn't work. Okay, we put that in there, and then that, can be solved same day, something like that. So there's different priorities you can put on it also. So if a spill comes in, I can put high priority on it. Typically, George already knows about it because everybody calls him. But so that one, I'll get to that later. But yeah, so my goal with the department is to have everything that comes through our desk, no matter how silly it is or how big it is, to be responded to within a day. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be able to solve it within a day, but my goal is for the ones that are solvable, them to be done within a week. And I think that's a fair assessment for us with our staff. The next one is to reduce and eliminate the SSOs. Now, you're never going to eliminate your SSOs, but we can take steps to improve our collection system. We've already done that with our capital improvements. Now we can also go out and clean the system more often. There is a break-even point where if you're just going out and cleaning, you're just putting clean water down the pipe. That's not going to get you any goals. So you have to have targeted areas where you go to and clean, so that you're trying to reduce your likelihood of an SSO happening. You're trying to clear that pipe out before it blocks up, and maybe it's 50% blocked.
Okay, SSO, sewer service.
Oh, sanitary sewer overflow.
Overflow.
Sanitary service.
Sanitary sewer overflow. Yeah, so if it's over 100 gallons, or if it's over 1,000 gallons, it becomes a whole different issue. There's reports that have to be done. We have to call Cal OES. It goes into another area. If they're over 100 gallons, we have to report them to CWIX. We have to do a full page on that and write up. And our goal with every spill is to be on site within the hour. And we typically hit that. We've hit that every single time. So.
And CWIC, California, what?
What is that one? Oh, do you know what that one is? I don't remember what that acronym is. It's the one that tracks all your SSMPs, so all your sanitary maintenance plan. And then the third goal that we had for 2025 was to improve the streets and roads. Now, obviously, we don't have unlimited funding, so we can't go out there and just repave a road. But what we can do is when a pothole comes in, we can get out there as fast as we can. Jeff usually drives around the day after a storm to see which ones have blown out, redo those. We check them a day later too to make sure that that's working, because a lot of times we put asphalt in the thing and then all of a sudden 2 days later it pops back out, and so you're just, then we have to get concrete in there and we have to do a more thorough fix. So our goal is for potholes to be remediated within 5 days. Typically, we're next day after a storm. Maybe we go 2 days, if there's something else that's happening. But our goal was to be within 5 days, and we got that this year. We were also thinking that maybe in the future, since there's a limited budget, that maybe we could do a survey of people to figure out which roads they think are the worst or are needing more maintenance, that kind of thing. Just kind of trying to get public input on these.
Don't we receive also state rankings in terms of safety and condition of the roads, or state, some type of
No.
governmental?
No.
I thought with our circulation
For
element.
the A
we-
through F
Yes,
designation.
yeah, there's a
For
ranking,
safety, yes, but to measure pavement quality,
yes.
we don't do that all the time.
No, we do have a PCI number, so that's a pavement condition index.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, we don't pay for that software, so we
Okay,
don't.
how is that, how is the PCI?
It's done every now and then
Just
it's
now and then.
graded annually mathematically, which isn't necessarily accurate.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
How is
You
that
can do it by
used in
hand.
your- Is that used in your evaluation or decision making?
No, we don't have those tools available to us.
well,
We
she's
don't-
saying though, we have our PCIs, but we don't use those. We drive around and look at the road.
Yeah.
Just your
I mean,
So
our
it's-
PCIs are all under like 50. So it's pretty much if you went by PCIs, your road should have been replaced like 10 years ago. So it's not like a really useful tool because they're already so far gone that like a PCI is more for like, when you're a new road, it's 100.
Mhm.
And then like maybe 2 or 3 years, it's an 80, I mean, so we're down in like the 40s and 50s. So, going from like a road that barely drives to a road that really doesn't drive, that's not going to help us out too much. We just know that they're bad. And so a better use of our resources is to go and drive it and be like, oh, well, it's really bad because there's this one big pothole. Maybe we can smooth that area out and like fix that one area, and that'll help the whole road, rather than just getting a number that could help or could not. It doesn't get detailed
Yeah.
enough for us to go out. So we need to go out there and drive it.
Okay,
That's what we do.
thank you.
Yep. And so we do on average, we do more potholes around storm times. I mean, just when the water comes in, it pushes the roads out. And so here we have 24 pothole days that we did a year. We probably did more in the winter, and whenever the last storm was, kind of stuff. We don't do it in the summer as often. But on average, it's probably about twice a month. So this slide is just kind of showing all of the major accomplishments that we did this year. We know about the I&I. We did our miscellaneous projects this year. We replaced about 3,700 linear feet of pipe. Henderson, I'll call that a maybe win. We got closer. So the above ground stuff is all done. The underground stuff, we're about 80% clean with the pipe. We probably have to do it a couple more times, and we're looking into maybe doing a liner, maybe doing a spray in. We've got some more work to do on that, but we also have about 6 months to figure that out. So, but we are still mostly in budget for that project. There'll probably be a little overage, but it might not be over the 10% that we have for the contingency fund.
And again, the pier and everything,
Oh yeah,
we did ourselves.
Yeah, we replaced a lot of the pier. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have walked out on it before. And so we reinforced that with Jeff Campbell. And that's been a huge safety improvement for us. So now I feel confident having Corey go out there and moving a valve.
I was surprised to see that the Henderson Underdrain project we're saying is 80% complete. I mean, I guess that's good news, but what's not, I mean, we're going to have to go another season at least, because what's not complete is underwater now. So,
Yep.
It's still a major project for next year if it's empty enough, or the following
Yeah,
year.
but the part that's left is not a major. I mean, it's a major project, but it's like, when we go out when we did Sutter Oaks, we did all those things. That's the same kind of technology. So you dig a pit, you go into the line, you push the liner through.
The major part is emptying the reservoir again.
The major part is emptying the reservoir. The major part was also doing the open cut stuff. That's where it gets more dicey. When you're doing a pipelining, it's engineers and the line. Sorry, Jim.
Do you have the ability to completely shut off the underdrain?
We've got it down to 7%. So that's the best
Okay.
we've seen in
And is that enough?
ever.
Can you can you do some of that work from the lower end of the under drain, the downstream end?
You can't
rather
do
than-
you can't do the liner.
So that requires getting the reservoir.
that requires
below-
the
lowering the reservoir.
yeah, and you gotta have the line go all the way through.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But also, if with the valves now operational, we can actually put a little bit of the wastewater into the line and kind of let it corrode over the year. And so we think that'll actually help with the metal shards that are kind of sitting out there. That's one of our thoughts right now. And so we're going to use our wastewater to help us actually create a corrosive environment. So it might actually help us to have a little longer in the pipe. The parks, we upgraded the mini Provost Park entrance. We did plant wildflower seeds up at Gateway. The weather did not help us out, and so those didn't really bloom. So we're hoping that this year we'll get more bang for our buck. But yeah, that didn't work out last year like we hoped. You know, because a lot of the stuff that we do is weather dependent, and so if the weather doesn't cooperate, then you know it's harder for us. Yeah, or maybe it just hasn't enough time, you know, to get in there. So. Facilities, we clean restrooms every day, city offices every week. We mop the auditorium every week. We do these meeting setups and takedowns. I think we had about 100 room setups this year. So that's a significant time out of Matt's day, coming up here and setting it up, taking it down. You know, there's always somebody coming in here next, so it needs to be at a certain time. You know, it can't be a day later or something like that most of the times. And then administrative, this is mostly my category. So state filings I have to do, permitting, purchasing, always on the lookout for new trucks. If anybody knows of anyone that's selling a truck, a utility truck, we're always in the market for those. Coordinating with our agencies, annual reports, budget. I pretty much enter in every ticket, me or George do the tickets. We did get a service contract for our HVAC systems. So we're hoping next year with more maintenance on the system, we won't have so many failures. Feels like we had a lot this year. We had to emergency call somebody in. So we're trying to get ahead of that.
On this slide, Dan, the first three, the I&I and the Henderson and the park, you know, those are great. The huge investments the city made that you guys oversaw. But there were a couple things that you guys did in-house this year. The fence was this year, right? And something on
the fence in the what's that parking lot? Yeah.
Last year?
Oh, I don't know. I was
Yeah,
just
might be.
looking to, you know, I think that's important to include the stuff that we perform.
Yeah, I mean, we perform a lot of work with these big capital projects too, because we have to be out there overseeing them. You know, you don't just have somebody build your house and never walk into it until it's done. You know what I mean? So you have to make sure that you walk through it and be like, oh, the electrical's right, the plumbing's right, the carpentry's right, you know? So it takes a lot of time out of our day to oversee, make sure everything's going wrong. There's problems that come up in the field all the time that George has to deal with. He's mainly my guy that's out there on the field for the collection system projects. And he's out there helping them make connections, you know, oh, is this slope enough? Is it too much? Is it not enough? You know, all these little things have to be worked out. And the contractor just wants to get out of there because they already got paid or they're going to get paid. But we need to be right for us. So it's a lot of oversight on our side. But yeah, we did do the parks ourselves, the facilities, and yeah, the administration is all of us. So kind of getting into what we do on a day-to-day basis based on the focus area, you know, the collection system, obviously we respond to spills. We go through and we clean targeted areas every month. I put that in my report. We have a fat and grease program that we go around and check restaurants and make sure that they're complying, getting their grease traps emptied, that kind of stuff. We also, anytime anybody wants to dig within the city, a USA service ticket is sent to us. And so we have to go out there and we have to mark where our sewer lines are to make sure that nobody hits those. We also have to check the pump station daily.
In regards to the fog, was it in here in this document that we're working with today, it talks about the Martell service area. And
our
okay, we don't have any input or control on determining if inspections are being done on grease traps from that zone.
Yeah, we would have to talk to
And-
to AWA
Okay.
because they run that part of the system. But
think
that does
that
come
being
into our
very, very
business.
important that we need and
So we are-
encourage compliance.
We're talking
Yeah.
about testing up there at the.
Yeah, it's
plant.
one of our goals for the wastewater plant is trying to fully characterize our waste and where it's coming from. So like Ramco is one
Right.
that, puts a lot of stuff in. Martell is another one that could possibly have, because we have very high BODs, biological oxygen demand.
Right.
And so we don't know where that's coming from. There's only a couple of culprits. So we're going to look into that to see if we can figure that out, because the more organic loading you have, the bigger the system has to be,
Right.
the more filtering you have to do. It all goes into cost. So if we can knock that down and say, oh, that's just a fluke, we don't need to actually design for that, then we can save a lot of money on that. So yeah, that's going to be one of our goals this year. With the wastewater treatment plant, we do daily rounds, morning and afternoon. We waste sludge probably 3 times a week. Collect samples, we do maintenance and repair, and then we submit monthly reports to the water board. For ARSA, takes us about a day to drive the pipeline. When we do that, we adjust the flows in the reservoir. We do weed and rodent abatement. We fix the sprinklers. Cows love sprinklers for some reason. Didn't know that until this job. But they love to rub against them and break them. So we're always out there replacing sprinklers. Luckily, knock on wood somewhere, we haven't had to irrigate in the last couple of years. That's a huge expense. And then we submit weekly reservoir reports to the water board. With the roads and the sidewalks, we do pothole elimination, twice a month usually. Painting and striping, it's very weather dependent, so it's kind of hard to do it all the time. But we do go out there and every now and then stripe something or paint something with a stencil.
Is there a priority list that determines where you stripe, what you stripe?
Not this time, no. I'm trying to build one internally.
Because and not to make you feel defensive, but I know in the past, we've highlighted a couple areas just around town within the city
Yeah.
that could use some attention just for safety.
Yeah, the
And-
problem, one of the problems that I'm running into too is I want to redo lines, but then if the road's going to be repaved, I don't want to do it and then redo it again, So some areas that are really bad, I've kind of held off because we're going to like Sutter Oaks, we're going to redo that road. And so then afterwards, you want to make that extra
Yeah.
capital expense.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an influx. It takes a lot of driving around and figuring out where stuff's really bad, and then prioritizing that. And we haven't had a chance to do that as much.
Okay, 'cause
Yeah.
So
we haven't had any accidents or anything to bring attention to someplace, but obviously striping like we talked about
Go for flat.
Broadway.
Yeah.
Go
Go for flat, like the center line's almost gone.
Go for flat, actually, someone was driving at least 2 feet over the center line.
Yeah.
Probably couldn't see it, but actually almost pushed me off to the other side of the road. And it
Yeah.
wasn't somebody that was inattentive, it was somebody who was just driving and I'm assuming just couldn't see the center line.
Yeah, so
that's-
redoing that center line is $15,000 to paint it. And if you want to do thermo, it's about $20,000. So it's not a small investment,
No.
like for us.
That's why I was wondering how, or is there is a prioritization process on?
Our prioritization has been before with the SB1 funds to do roads, to actually repave the roads. So we haven't done the striping. It's getting to the point where it's probably going to have to be striping. We're probably going to need to focus on that more than fixing the roads because the stripes are just so bad, you know?
Would Measure P be a resource
Yes,
potentially?
definitely.
Um,
I'm
for
I'm
that.
hoping that money can help me out too and bring me some more money so that I can do striping around town.
So, but things like basically at this point entirely missing stop sign bars on Randolph Street and Spanish Street, which are a white line.
Yeah.
You know,
That's us.
I'm
That's what
not
we can do.
understanding the,
No, that we can do. Yeah.
yeah. that's
I'm talking
exactly
more
what
about
we have.
the center lines. The center lines are the ones that we contract out. The ones that we have in house, the little ones, that's just finding time. You know, we've
So how do things like that, going back to a couple slides ago where we were talking about the response to issues, I think was the
Yep.
word.
Mhm.
How does that fit into that metric?
that's a tough one because it's got to be weather dependent, you know. So when it comes in, you know, there's a couple in there that are striping, and those are the ones that have not been done because we need the timing to work out. So we need the timing of our guys to have availability, and we need the timing of the weather to work out. And so just making sure that all that lines up.
How does then roadway safety measure into that metric of timing and availability?
Well, if we don't have accidents, then it's kind of hard to talk safety. I'm not really sure what you're asking.
Well,
there.
just like for example, the stop sign.
Oh,
Trying
yeah.
to say, okay, to me, that would be a safety priority.
On a larger street, it would be, yeah, yeah. The smaller ones, yeah, it's a
But
kind of a safety.
Wouldn't smaller versus use? I mean, that's a road that's heavily, and that's an intersection that's heavily traveled just because of the school there.
Yeah, we haven't really had the luxury to look at safety with that in mind.
Hmm.
I'm not
but no,
understanding what you're
I-
saying. It's
Yeah, that,
an intersection on a school street, and Spanish Street you could call a school street
Yeah.
too, right? That has traffic daily. You know, we've known about it for months. So I'm missing what part of the process is holding this up. You need to do, I don't think we need to do a safety evaluation or have an accident to know that we need to paint a white stripe. I don't think it's a large budget
No,
item,
yeah.
you know, so and you know, we're bringing up that one issue, but I think that
Let's get through some more slides. I think, you know, part of it's prioritizing time as well, right? But, you know, we hear you guys, so.
Yeah, I agree that probably should have been higher on our list. Yeah. Storm drains. Eric is mainly the one that does this. Removes leaves from the sidewalks. Usually before the storms, we'll go out there and we'll start clearing out the leaves in advance of what's going to happen, what's going to come, and then maintaining and clearing the tributaries. So around in a month or so, CAL FIRE will come back out, you know, start clearing out areas. And so we usually do that 2 times a year. And then Eric usually watches them. He's supposed to be out there all the time. He usually stays there most of the day and kind of breaks off to do little things if he can. Facilities and parks, cleaning the facilities and restrooms, repairing facilities, maintenance of the parks, tear down setup and weed abatement. And then public areas, Main Street, you know, everything that we have. And so then aside from the daily activities, we also have significant time where we have to do certain things, but it's for seasonal. So fall and winter, spring and fall become big times for us. Everything's growing. It's time to cut everything back. Winter or fall, we're trying to prepare for winter. So in here we have just, you know, things that we do based on what season it is.
there's an item a couple slides from here where summer stuff, I forget what you call it, is, you know, an extra 120 hours or something. And there's no summer on this seasonal list. So I was just confused by that. I'm sure we'll get to it in a minute, but I wasn't sure what it meant. So I went back to this sheet to see.
Yeah, I kind of don't, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that was kind of a mistake on my part. There is significant stuff that we do during the summer. It's just more maintenance oriented, you know. So like mowing we don't do during, you know, winter and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think some of these on this list are shorter, more specific. I think the summer things are like kind of all summer long. And
Yeah.
they're a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, we do the pool too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think with that last slide, I was thinking more of like the fall and spring kind of activities. I wasn't really focusing on the summer just because it's so much extra work. So I wasn't really putting that in that slide. These are just kind of some of the more challenging issues that we face all the time. Balancing our workload, you know, do we spend more money and do a capital project, or do we just limp it along with some extra maintenance? You know, those are the choices we have to make all the time. You know, do you repair the HVAC, or do you just keep limping it along with service calls every year? You know, those become issues that we have to talk about. Handling unforeseen emergencies, you know, everybody comes into the front, they talk to Mason. If it comes to us, then he sends us notices. And we probably get, I would say, 1 or 2 a day, people, you know, with something that we have to go deal with. Communication is a problem for all public works. You know, public works is very behind the scenes. You know, it's like when you go to Disneyland, you don't want to see the maintenance workers out there. You know, they need to be done before you get there. So it's a lot of, you know, hard to show people what we're doing, because a lot of the stuff, if we're doing it right, you're never going to see us, you know. Expectations. A lot of times we get calls from people with trees that are on their property and they want us to come take care of it. And so we either have to explain to them why it's not our responsibility, or just kind of go for it sometimes, because it's easier just to take a tree down or take a couple limbs off, you know, whatever it needs to be. A lot of times we get called for sewer laterals. The sewer laterals are not the city's responsibility. But it's hard to tell that before you get out there. You know, you don't know if the blockage is in the lateral or if it's in the main. So we have to dispatch a person, go downstream. If there's water flowing, okay, maybe it's in the lateral, you know, so then we can push it back on them. Most of the time when we're already out there, we've got our equipment, we'll just shove it up a little bit. Oh, maybe we got it for you, you know, so people think that that's our responsibility when really we're just trying to do a little extra and be nice to the residents. I can't tell you how many times I get a call for somebody screaming at me that there's a water leak, which is really funny because we have no responsibility for the water. And so I just want to let everybody know that the city does not provide water. Water is AWA. If there is a leak in the street, if it's causing some issue, and it doesn't matter how big the leak is or small, call 911. 911 will dispatch it to the police. They'll call me. I can look at it and I can say, oh, that's our issue or that's not our issue. And so, yeah, if you do anything else, you'll get to like a lower number, and then it won't get to us for a while. And then by that point, it becomes a big emergency, you know. Our staff skill set. We're very lucky here. We have 3 guys that have been here for over 15, 20 years, something like that. So they have a lot of institutional knowledge. That helps me out a lot because they already know where the problem is. You know, me and George can talk about a problem for 5 seconds. He already knows everything. He knows where it is. He knows how to get it. He knows where to access the point. You know, if we had to actually tell somebody how to do all that stuff, it's just invaluable, the experience that we have that we can lean on here.
That is invaluable, and we're lucky for it. But one day George is going to want to retire, so it's
He's
not.
gonna live here forever.
It's not adequate to rely on institutional knowledge,
Yeah,
and it goes back to something part of all of these processes. We need to know what we do and how we do
Yeah.
it.
That's a common problem for most.
Yeah,
public
it
works.
needs to be
Yeah.
documented.
Yeah, and we do have SOPs for all of our stuff, but it doesn't tell you exactly where that one lateral that goes through that little corner and hits that side. So we do know all about that because we talk so much internally with each other. But yeah, it is a good help.
And Dan and I have talked about, you know, we've started to ramp up our social media and our newsletter and stuff, and just including more public works in some of this communication. We've done some, but I think we could do more.
And also, I mean, I appreciate feedback if it's too much, you know, because I can talk forever about every little problem. And if I don't want to bore everybody with details, you know, so I want to show everybody what we're doing, but I don't want to like get into the weeds too far, you know, so that's my constant challenge, to explain, but not make it to the point where people are glazed eyes over, because that happens very easily sometimes. And so this is just from talking to everybody and figuring out where timesheets have gone, all the time that I've accumulated over the years. This is my average hours per month that we take to do each task there.
We can go through these pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is more just if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, if you think, you know.
I did. Does anybody else want to start? Or this math isn't mathing. I could point out, you know, a couple of things, but overall, you know, you've told us a couple of times there's just too much work for the people we have, and I'm hearing you, and we understand that the biggest challenge we have is to maintain, you know, our standards with the resources that we have. But, you know, if we're trying to focus on, you know, rather than expanding resources, because we're not going to hire somebody else now, you know, how to improve deploying the existing resources that we have, right? So I think that's why this kind of information is important. And, you know, if you look at some of it, just in these couple pages, it really contradicts itself. And we could take this offline, but all of it is calculated with just 4 weeks a month, which, you know, makes 13 weeks a year, which doesn't add up, which actually means that rather than 90% of the time being on daily tasks, it's 80%. It doesn't include your time. There's little things I was confused about. The bathrooms cleaning and mopping adds up to 120 hours a month on this. And I believe that's mostly stuff that Crystal does. And we see Crystal all the time out doing awesome work on other things. So, you know, how does that match up? Is this the ideal? Is this how much time we should be spending doing it? I spend a lot of time in some of these facilities, and, you know, let's take the grammar school. It's probably where I spend the most time. You know, I've frequently cleaned the bathrooms and mopped the floors myself, you know. So like I said, the math isn't mathing. Some of the room setup stuff, just how, and I just want to stress the importance of having this information, because that's how we're trying to make these decisions. You know, that's how we have to figure out what we can or can't do, and, you know, what we're not going to be able to accomplish and what we can. So, you know, I'm happy to go through piece by piece, not right now with you, the things that I discovered that didn't make sense. You know, I wrote down here the pool, that in the summer that says one of your folks, our folks are here at the pool 3 hours a day, 7 days a week when the pool's open for, you know, 3 months a year. That isn't right, you know. How
You're talking those numbers, the 30 and 40?
off these sheets, all out of this packet, the numbers in here.
Yeah, but I changed some of them. So
Let's look on the slides here.
So this is what we got yesterday that I reviewed.
Yeah, Dan made some more changes between
Yeah.
now and
Well,
today.
I'm
Small
looking
ones.
at what I got just yesterday. So the math doesn't math, I guess is my point. So I don't know, you know, we did a deep dive with an ad hoc committee with police, you know, as Jim can tell you, to really look at these things, and it's due diligence, but I think maybe if the public and the council understood MMS better, You know, maybe that would add some clarity. Um, uh, but, you know, what we got in this packet isn't answering any of my questions really or concerns. And that's just speaking for me. And, you know, if the message that we're getting from the department is there's too much work for the number of hours, then we need to be able to quantify that. And these hours don't add up.
This
to
this is our best stab at the hours with the amount of resources that we have. If we want to prioritize doing the metrics, then yeah, we can get way more into this.
Well, there's also already an implication on here that because 90% of the capacity is used by daily tasks, we're going to have overtime, you know, and those are,
Yeah.
you know, those, well, I mean, we have to prove that, we have to show that before we accept that. And I don't think that these metrics do that myself. I mean, there's the rest of the council and the public that can, you know, make their comments, but so just a question, how many times a week do you mow Bryson Park?
It should be, Bryson, it should be twice a week.
Month,
Go ahead, Rich.
twice a month.
No, it should be twice a week. I mean, or at least once a week.
So you're, so
Once a
I
week,
can,
sorry, once a week. Sorry.
so I could attest to that. That doesn't happen. And I get it. You got to haul lawnmower up there and do all that. Now, that being said, with the new construction of the bathroom, finally, we can actually have a working bathroom up there. And I'm guessing the other part of it's going to be for storage because you're doubling the size of it. There'll be a lawnmower parked up there and lawn equipment parked up there. So it's going to be a lot easier. But I can tell you, I would say in growing season, maybe once, you might mow it once every 2 weeks, maybe. And this is the frustrating part for me is living up there, or not just me, but the whole neighborhood. We come down here, it's beautiful down here. You know, go down the strip down Main Street, it's awesome. Why don't we see the same thing? You know, we're taxpayers too. I get it. It's a whole optics thing. But to me, it's a big thing for us up there that we, and you know, I've heard in past city managers, the reason why they closed the restroom was because there was vandalism. Well, when a place looks like a dump, you're going to get vandalism. That's just what's going to happen. So, and again, I'm not trying to be real. I'm not upset. I'm just,
No.
I want to share this with you guys, how we feel up there.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it, honestly.
My
I mean,
grandkids come up and we go to play the park. Well, we either try to find a tree from the pee behind, or we got to go back to the house and use the restroom.
yeah.
So what's a park for? You know what I mean? The park's for to go to enjoy, stay there, have a picnic. You can't do that at that park. So, like I said, big step forward with the restroom renovation and storage. I guess to me, yeah, let's just see what happens now, because now there's no more excuses. And if something gets vandalized up there, I would say be proactive and maybe put a locking device on the restroom at dark, whatever it is.
Yeah, we're
Whatever the
getting it.
method is. But anyway, just as a citizen. And then the other thing I have is that was a resident side, so being a business owner side, our business is right here on the bridge, on the, I guess, west side of the bridge. Again, everything on the east side of the bridge and the creek up this way looks awesome.
Hmm.
The west side of the bridge looks like a dump. Took forever to get it cut, which it was. Finally, the Cal Fire came in or whoever cleaned it up, but they just let it lay there. Now, to me, fortunate enough, we haven't had big rains. But to me, having that, and I don't know if city council members, if you've gone down and looked at that, but if we have some big floods, big rains, people downstream on Badger are going to be in a world of hurt, because all that does is, right, that holds up water, right? So And maybe you ran out of time because you can only be in the creek until what, mid-October or something like that. Maybe that's how that works. I don't know. But again, it's just, this is just the little stuff that I see that is very easily fixable. And so anyway, so that was the business side of it, and the resident side of it. You heard my piece about the Bryson Park, but thank you. And look, and here's the issue to me that the city council has to deal with, and administration, is how do you motivate your workers? And I said this earlier. How do you motivate your workers? Because I don't see a lot of motivation right now. I'm being totally honest right now. I think your morale is down. I think your guys don't want to go to work every morning. So when that happens, they're not going to be efficient. They're going to figure out ways that, I'm getting paid $24 an hour. I'm going to work at $24 an hour. Yeah, that's no good. So, it's always a budget, right? Everything comes back to budget, like we were saying. But you got to take care of your people. And if it's monetarily, if it's benefits, if it's once a month, you have a appreciation barbecue for the guys, that helps. I don't know. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, thank you.
I-
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I want to merge in with what Claire brought up earlier regarding it doesn't add up based on the information and just the time allocated to daily tasks. I did some calculations last night, it's more specific this morning. Anyway, there are more hours that you list per month that actually exist per month. So that's not even including the pool. So if you add up the hours per month on page 25 and divide by 30, then average, days per year, it actually gives more hours than what really exist. So that kind of diminishes my confidence in this report. And that's not even including for the months starting in May, June, July, and August for, 84 hours per month. So that doesn't even include that. So that message that I'm not confident that this is accurate, plus combining a little bit of what Rich said, makes me ask, do you have a list of tasks or job assignments that are assigned to your staff, specific ones? Like, for example, George has blah, 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 blah. Corey has this job assignment.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that exists.
Yep.
Do we have metrics for job performance or completion of tasks?
No,
We don't.
No.
Can I ask why?
because
Just
it costs money and time. We don't have the time to track everything that we're doing. I mean, MMS is our best thing that we have. To know that it's in there,
So-
know that it's solved. But we don't do that for like our daily tasks. That's for like one-offs.
Yeah. And again, not to make George, who's here, defensive, but how do we do, because this might address Rich's point, is then how do we do job performance or evaluations? Because evaluations, not to depersonalize it, would tell us then what is and what isn't being done on a monthly basis.
We do performance evaluations every year.
Okay, but on a monthly basis, how do we know what got done? Do we know that? Can we track
Like,
that?
are you talking like our daily tasks kind of stuff?
Oh, no, like on a monthly basis, if we have a monthly hours per month, this report, do we have what was actually a report on what was actually completed?
I mean, I have
For a month?
I have the report that I
Break
give
it
to you
down?
guys.
First of all, thank you for compiling this, and I think it's good to have a rough draft, and maybe you can just go through and update it. It's a lot of numbers to work with. And I love that idea. Like, can we have work orders? Like, can we have who's assigned to what? And then even if it comes down to paper and a clipboard, because I agree. I think there's things that can't get done, and the park looks wonderful. And I was just thinking yesterday, what an enormous task you have to care for this entire city. There's a lot going on. But, and then I also, please, can we add Main Street maintenance to this list? Because I, on a lark, cleaned up that one thing on Eureka and 40 or whatever, old 49 Main Street the other day. And there was garbage in there from Halloween. And that's like where everyone is. And if we're looking at economic development and tourism, and in my mind, you know, like the Disneyland reference, same thing at UC Berkeley got come up whenever I went to school there, and whenever I'm there, I'm like, who did this? Why is it so perfect? Because I don't see anyone maintaining it, but they do. And I'm going to find out when they do, probably early in the morning. But that just shouldn't be. We shouldn't have our main street overgrown with weeds, and I'm pretty weed tolerant, and a lot of people aren't. So in my mind, that, and this is just a sort of micromanaging, but I think that it then applies to the whole picture. I would think Monday morning, there should be garbage pickup on Monday, and it includes every flower bed. And then maybe every Thursday is like an hour of like you weed whack. I mean, there was even like grass this tall in there. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, and I appreciate you, and I know you're doing a lot, and there's all these other things behind the scene, but it's just crucial for the town to look right. It's so charming. There's so many people visiting us, and I think y'all can do it. And then it also makes you feel good. I know, like the property I bought, it feels better now. Like when I got it and it was a disaster, it didn't feel good. And people respond, and they come back, and they take pictures, and they share them on social media. And I know you guys are doing a ton of work. I'm not trying to criticize it. I just think as, Rich is your name? Talked about efficiency, and I think we could really dial that in, and then people will feel better and work harder and go home proud at the end of the day.
So if I could jump in, a couple comments. Again, I think we're trying to have a positive working session here, and I think we're hearing your feedback, and I think calling this a draft is probably a good thing. You know, not to get into all the details, you know, when you're looking at averages for months and everything, you have to include vacation time and holidays. And we have a long history that we can look back on. And we do have overtime. And I think, you know, what Dan was talking about, the spray fields, those are very manual. In the last couple of years, we haven't had to operate them. But when we do, we incur a lot of overtime. And that means people are doing that and they're not doing other things. And so rather than dive into the details on these numbers, I think the main point was kind of that iceberg picture again, that a lot of our capacity is used for day-to-day stuff. We have emergencies that pop up that aren't part of the regular schedule. We do have things that require overtime. If a project for safety or whatever requires 2 or 3 people together, you know, we've shifted to this new work schedule. We have said, you know, when we do a project, we're going to have overtime. You know, we're going to pull 3 people in to work on a specific project. So I just kind of wanted to up-level it to that. I think that was really kind of what we were trying to get to, kind of illustrate that to the council. And I think as we talk, I think some of this feedback's very good. Part of it is Dan's responsibility to manage, so we don't want to get into too deep into the weeds, but I do think it's reasonable to kind of highlight some of these goals, highlight some of these areas. So, you know, we're going to run out of time today, I think, but I think we should take this as kind of the first conversation around this. So it's just my thoughts on kind of where the conversation's been going.
Rich?
I just had 2 items. First of all, none of my criticism was directed to anybody here. Okay, just a citizens putting it out there. Secondly, we use, and I don't know what the city uses, but we use it's called Rake-In is what we use, but and everything that my guys do on jobs has a category. So, and they all have, my foreman, they're the ones that fill it out every day, but each one of your guys could do it. This is just a suggestion. You could look at, I'm sure there's other programs out there. Each guy, and this would help you guys later seeing where that time is spent, right? So You know, one category, say category 100 would be mow lawn. So, yeah, okay, I spent 2 hours today doing that, whatever it is. So anyway, just the thought process, because, right, I mean, that's how you build a budget, right? Is to know what you just spent last year on each category. That's how you build your budget for time too. So just a suggestion. And Dan, if you want to, I can share it with you if you want, or the city, whoever, and you can kind of look into it. But it's a pretty good tool, and it's got so many things you can do. You can take pictures of things, and it stores it, stores it in the cloud that you can look at. So I have right now, we have 3 guys, 3 spots on it. 1, 2, yeah, 3 of us are on it, including myself, and it's like $2,400 a year. So just a thought. Thank you. I'm out. Thank you.
See you, Rich.
I just want to really quick jump in for like a minute, but I wanted to just say that from the City Hall perspective, we see a lot of people come into City Hall, like Claire was saying, we talked about maintenance requests or complaints or so on, such and so forth. We also get the other side. People come in and they talking about something that's going on in town, and they're like, I say, well, maybe George is the best person that might be able to take care of that. And they're like, oh, Georgie, yeah, I can just get a hold of him. He's great. He, takes care of it really fast, and I know how to get a hold of him. I blah, blah, blah. That was just this week, something like that comes in, or I'm walking out to back office, talk to Tom, maybe Dan, and Matt Havens is out there chit-chatting with somebody about working in the flower bed or whatever and what he's planning on doing, and they're appreciative of that conversation, and they feel heard, and they feel like they have an impact. And I do think Dan was saying it's best to work, they try to be in the background, but there's also that customer facing side that our staff have that I do think makes an impact with the citizens, to know that they see these public works guys and they can talk to them and have a conversation and understand kind of what's operationally going on and how they're doing it and why they're doing it. And I think that optic is good too. Same with police, you guys are out on the streets and you have the optic with the citizens. And, our job in my office might not be the most beautiful, and it's kind of like the backside stuff, but that's the people out in the boots on the ground, and people do value the work, and they really appreciate you guys and the relationships they have with the staff. They've known especially for a long time, and kind of our relationship with the public is good, and I think that's valuable as well. I just wanted to point that out.
Thanks, Mason.
And I just have one more thing. Dan, I don't want to undermine all the work that your staff has to do. Obviously, there's more work probably than ours, and obviously staff. At one time, we had talked about a community volunteer group to do some of them. Don't want to say menial, but for example, Susan was out yesterday, pulling weeds at the corner. Are there some times when either the Henderson Dam or ARSA requires you to pull your staff and there's a major problem going on, that a volunteer group could help with some of the other things in town, just some of the gardening, weed pulling?
I mean, we could, but that also takes a person to organize it and all that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, it can happen. It's just hard to get.
Because I know we had it, what was it, a couple of years ago? There were about probably a dozen of us that met downtown, and on a Saturday or Sunday morning, we just pulled weeds. We picked up trash. We had, our grabbers.
Yeah, that was.
And we all spent, maybe it was just 2 or 3 hours that morning.
I think it can work in that situation where it's planned ahead what day you're gonna
Correct.
meet, but not because they've had an emergency down at the ARSA that you can just.
Or if you know ahead
pull
of
in-
time,
Pull
yeah.
in your crew. I think it has to be more scheduled.
No, I'm not asking
Plan-
for something,
plan in
that
advance.
impromptu, but something maybe once a month, plan once a month.
Or even, Julia, maybe we coordinate and do it like quarterly, because I know in Amador City at one point they planted like 1,000 daffodil bulbs, and a bunch of community members came out, and and it's good community building too. We'll talk about that maybe.
I think that has to come from someone like yourself or a citizen group to organize it, rather than our public works.
No, I was just asking him. I didn't ask him to organize it.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't want to add one more thing
That's going to
Yeah,
take.
sorry.
on the overloaded
He
plate.
said that's going to take
time and
No,
he
no, I
doesn't have.
absolutely agreed. But would that be of any assistance?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
On the flip side, it takes away the optics of Public Works, doing, and I don't want to think that, oh, you have to have volunteers because,
Yeah, I
we're
mean, as long as they're not,
employees.
using power tools or taking jobs that, union,
ex-
you'd have to worry about that, but as long as that's not happening.
Like high, peak periods during the year, during months, maybe like what Jim's or Susan said quarterly, like pick 3 months that, this volunteer group can meet and
Yeah.
which would be peak, which would match up with peak
Yeah.
seasons for you.
And we did that, we had a volunteer group meet. It was
Mhm.
hard to sustain it. We did that one cleanup day. That's a good example. I think we could try to do that quarterly. We have some volunteer, it's a couple that cleans the stuff on the bridge. That's like a regular thing. It's kind of self-sustaining. I think projects like that make sense. It's special new stuff. Like if we're gonna construct something new or plant something new, that it takes some oversight and
Yeah.
um
But like after big events, like after the Parade of Lights, maybe the volunteer group, would be willing
Yeah.
to come down.
Yeah.
like last year
After the
after the duck
Italian,
race, yeah,
Mhm.
the Foothill Conservancy cleaned up the creek after the duck
Well,
race last year.
When you receive a permit to have a special event like that, there are requirements that whoever's putting on the event has to clean it up too.
but you and I both know that after a big event and like for Susan to say there was stuff there from Halloween and we're getting deep.
Yeah.
So that was my question, if something like that was arranged,
Yeah. that would help.
organized outside of Public Works.
Mhm. Yeah, that'll
Okay.
help.
Thank you.
Okay, with 5 minutes, I think probably we should move on. I think this will be kind of an ongoing conversation, but just super quick on the appointments. You guys are in our municipal code, you guys appoint planning commissioners annually. You've all done that. I think we're still waiting. I think Susan's going to appoint somebody. That's the one opening right now. DRC is a little bit different. Their terms aren't even defined. Several members have been on since that organization was formed from the beginning. So this year we basically asked everybody if they were willing to serve again. They said yes for this year. I guess it was a question to council if we should maybe define the DRC a little bit with terms and some kind of process. It's kind of our architecture board, and so we may want to have some qualifications. Several of them, I think, have some architecture background. And the last point there, it's a balance of getting people to serve and keeping the bodies kind of vibrant. So, obviously sometimes it's hard to find people to fill open seats. And so we're lucky that people are interested and willing to do it. But, like I said, we've had some people that have been on there for a very long time as well. So, yeah. So I don't know. I guess my one question to you guys is, do you want us to spend some time this year thinking about the DRC in particular, which is kind of, their terms really aren't defined at all right now. Yeah.
Done just by doing what we just did for planning commission. We just added that to our.
Yeah, but I don't know
municipal
that you
code,
want
right?
your DRC to have each council member appoint one person. I think it's a little bit of a different body. But you could have you could interview people. A lot of councils interview people for committees.
Aaron, could you tell us how a couple other places do it? Just send a quick memo or something. I mean, it sounds worthwhile
Yeah,
doing.
can
I
look
don't.
into it. But the other thing I did want to bring up is that I don't know what year our design standards, let's see, they were originally in 2000, end of 2015, early 2016. And 1, 2, 3, 4 of the committee members that were on it that drafted the design standards are still on the DRC. So on one hand, that's great institutional knowledge. On the other hand, sometimes fresh ideas are good. So just something but I can look into how other cities do it. But I think like an annual or every other year review and reappointment is probably a good idea.
A lot of architects want to serve on these boards, and in most cities, you don't have to live in the city to be on the DRC, and that's true for us as well. So it's a little bit different than like your planning commission, where you have to be a resident, and they actually have decision-making authority. DRC purely recommends. So
Would there be design review if any of these developments that are on the list are built?
So with Gold Rush, no. They have they'll have to establish a homeowners association, and their design review will go through there, and our design standards specifically call out that Gold Rush is not included in this. And then Panner Creek, I believe, would require design review because it's a subdivision.
And what's Gold Rush considered?
It's just was called out in the design standards as an exempt subdivision because it has its own architectural guidelines in the specific plan, and their design review, once they're up and running, will be through their HOA.
And then if they decide to try and only do part of the specific plan, would that still be the case?
Yes, because we would still require them to establish a homeowners association up there.
Okay, thank you.
And also at DRC, there are projects that are outside of who are required to go to DRC, but when they're larger projects, I bring them. So there's 12 new homes on the Bryson Court, and that did not require DRC, but I like to bring those big things to them. Stuff that the MAC building, things that are kind of high visibility too.
Just really quickly too, and I don't know if she's spoken to you, but Sharon Brown has mentioned that she's happy to continue to serve on the design review board, but she's more than happy if someone's interested to give up her seat to give some fresh ideas. She's expressed that to me a couple times when she stopped by to just ask me a question, but just wanted to throw it out there.
Has anybody come in and expressed any interest in serving? Mason probably would be the one to answer that, or Tom.
well, again, when we had an opening, I polled you guys. We got a person who's an architect, and he served, it was Mike, for a year.
Yeah.
Like a normal service, normal term?
Yeah, but we don't have a waiting list, but I think if we had an opening, we can find people. This is
But
I'm
right
happy
now,
to-
there are no strict requirements.
No, so
To be on there.
No, and one of our members does not live within the city. I mean, he has professional experience as an architect, was on the board or on the committee when the design standards were drafted. So we have 2 architects, city planner, a real estate agent, and then Sharon.
Yep. So it's kind of a combination of an architecture review board and a historic review board. And the other area, like, which I don't know if John Otto has, is there are definitely classes around historic preservation and things that it's nice to have some of that experience. So we can move on to something again we can talk about. I guess my suggestion would be that we do think about maybe quantifying process and term a little bit. And then the last one, you said you had maybe 1 or 2 items on procedures, and that was.
I don't think it's maybe necessary because we don't actually really follow this document, but we never really arrived at a clear way to put items on the agenda. I think there's something in here that's like a multi-part process where you come back 3 times, and what we are doing seems to be working. So,
Yeah, I think what we
I'm
talked
a little
about,
pissed.
rather than one council member putting something on the agenda,
Right.
was kind of, and during the council meeting, you guys bring up items, and if there's a sense that it's kind of more than one member, it kind of gets added, and that's kind of what we've been doing. And
Yeah, there was at least one time with the tree ordinance and maybe another that kind of became a question, this is an item we want to sometime address. Looks like it might take a lot of time. And then you brought it back to us. Like, are we going to do this now? Do this later? Where do you want to prioritize it? That worked well too. So I think what we're doing is fine. I don't think it follows the letter of this, because if you go back through here, there's multiple steps and
I mean,
votes.
that's in a case where, like, maybe we were ignoring you and so you could force it onto the agenda, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think what we're doing is working fine though.
okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. I think everybody, I want to thank staff too for getting here at 8 a.m.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Once a
Thank
year.
you,
But-
everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Tom, for taking us through this process for the last 3 years. I think it helps us to move forward and we're
Okay.
good.
So we do have a party coming in. If a couple of people can help, we got to do a little tear down, I think.
Meeting adjourned, Miss Mayor?
Are we adjourned?
We're adjourned.